Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video. Humans were impatient people. If they could not see progress with their own eyes in the moment, rash action was often contemplated to speed up the process. Rashness led to risk. Risk led to failure. Failure led to death, or worse. It was pathetic, really. They saw it as the providence of worse than mere animals. At least a wolf could wait in an ambush position for far longer than a human could. For them, matters of hours or days or weeks really mattered nothing. Like a blink in the fabric of their existence, they could wait patiently and take stock in the slow but steady foundations of a plan millennia in the making. Alone as usual in the physical realm, their serenity was disturbed, as Sansa Stark entered the chamber. "Brain, may I talk to you?" They replied back as Bran Stark would. "Is something the matter?" "I received a letter from Jon. Can I read it to you?" "You may." "Sansa, forgive me for my lack of communication. There's been a lot happening that distracted my attention. But I can tell you that I am well, healthy if not in the best of physical condition, but that is my burden to bear. Don't worry. You also need not worry about my safety on Dragonstone. Daenerys Targaryen now treats me with the greatest respect. She is not someone to fear or loathe. I promise. Stannis has tasked me with finding peace, and such is what I am doing every day. While the North has withdrawn to north of the Neck, I urge you to reach out to both King's Landing and Dragonstone. Travel here even to treat with Queen Daenerys in person. We need this peace, Sansa. With the threat coming, we need it. I hope we see each other soon. Jon?" Finishing it off, they noticed Sansa fold the letter and slip it into the folds of her cloak, waiting patiently for their answer. "I'm not sure what you wish to be told," they finally said when she wouldn't break the silence. Blinking, Sansa approached them, kneeling beside the wheelchair. "Brittany, I know you can see things if you wish. I can't understand it, but I know. You saw Jon die. Then you confirmed Arya in that he lived. There is no clarity anymore. So I need you to tell me if he is free or a hostage of Stannis, or Daenerys writing this under duress." Gazing listlessly at Bran Stark's sister, they decided to be honest. In a way, whatever he says is what he believes to be the truth. He believes, "I cannot discern people's motives as an observer, so it is up to you to do so with your best knowledge. Is Daenerys abusing him?" Having witnessed what they did to each other in their solitude, they shook their head. "No, he is well cared for. I cannot say if he isn't being manipulated, though, by the stag or by the dragon." Sansa sighed. "Is that all you can tell me, Bran?" They bore into her. "Yes, that is all." With that, Sansa leaned down to kiss their forehead, something that felt like nothing to them. As she left her brother's chambers, Brienne caught her attention. "Have you gained any clarity, my lady?" Sighing, Sansa shook her head. Seems that with every new day, his answers grow more and more cryptic and harder to interpret. "Perhaps you should travel to the south yourself and meet with Daenerys Targaryen." "No, I shall not leave the north until absolutely necessary." That was the end of that. Brienne didn't pry any further. Thankfully, her duties were concluded for the day, so she headed to her chambers after bidding Brienne goodnight. A deep sigh left her lips. The acting lady of Winterfell deflating after such a stressful responsibility where she could finally simply be herself. "Rough day?" she heard from the bed. Looking at Podrick, already in bed with nary but a candle granting him light, Sansa smiled. "You don't know the half of it. Seems all days are like that." Sansa began to shuck off her dress and boots. Once something she felt unable to do even in front of her serving maids, now it was simply rote in front of him. Thanks to him, gods, in spite of it all, she was happy, just because she had Podrick in her life, the gem in the midst of all the muck. What is it this time? Now, nude, Sansa went to the hearth and removed a log from the woodpile, tossing it into the flames before stoking it with the poker. "Jon, we know he's alive. We know he was in Stannis' custody, from what Arya told us. Yet, we just received confirmation that he is on Dragonstone with the Dragon Queen seeking peace in the realm. I would think that is a good thing, peace. Yes, it would be, but I doubt it can be achieved. Too many competing interests." Satisfied with the heat of the fire, she quickly scurried to the bed and slid underneath the furs, immediately pulled into an embrace, making her smile. "He urges me to make an accord with the Dragon Queen. Will you?" I'll consider it, but the Dragon Queen must make the first move given what she did to the north. She's done nothing, Eadley stroked her skin, playing with her breasts as Podrick liked. Roasting thousands of our men is not nothing, Podrick. Our people will never accept her. I'm sure she will try to win their favor back. She has too, Podrick said. She won't have any luck, I'm afraid, Sansa huffed. I certainly won't be quick to jump to her side. Stain says been nothing but good to us. We have no reason to side with Daenerys. Perhaps you're right, Pod said. With Jon clearly alive, she had no clue of what to make of previous reports of his death. If Jon thinks her not the Mad Queen, I'd trust him, yet there is still the matter of form and politics. Considering what her family did to us, she needs to be the one to make the first move. Sansa turned in his arms. But let's not talk about this now. They kissed firmly, languidly. Bodies flush against each other and begin the dance they were familiar with after so long. And yet, Sansa. Podrick pulled back. Forgive me, but I'm so tired. She noticed it. Dark bags underneath his bloodshot eyes. Something was keeping him in pain, just as it was her. All right, she said. Let us rest. He nodded. First, though, let me... Prud, rest. No, let me. Feeling how his fingers searched out her intimate places, mouth latching to her skin, Sansa marveled in how loved she finally felt. In the middle of the night, she woke, sleepy eyes blinking open and adjusting for the pitch blackness. Wait. Why am I up? She used to never sleep through the night with nightmares of Ramsay, but since Pod her hands reached for him, but Sansa found his place in the bed empty. Nothing but bone-cold sheets and mattress. Sitting up and sheathing herself with the sheet, Sansa saw the hearth had died out. So that's why, without her lover the fire, she was cold. Strange, she spoke to no one in particular. Podrick usually stoked it when needed, yet he wasn't here. Rising, Sansa grabbed her nightdress and slipped it on, followed by her warm woolen cloak. At once she felt better, though the fogging up of her breath still belied an uncomfortable chamber. On a whim, she looked out the window once before drifting away, only to rush back and stare at the courtyard, covered in snow, the white granules still falling from the clouds above. The courtyard was deserted, except for one figure, a lone man dressed in naught but a sleep tunic, simply walking slowly through the snowdrifts. It was Podrick. Pod, she called out, heart pounding. Podge, he answered, rather staggering out into the cold. Without hesitation, Sansa slipped on a pair of felt boots and ran out the chamber. Guards on duty tried to call out for their lady, but she didn't care. He'll die out there if he stays longer. What possessed him to do it, she had no clue. All Sansa knew was how it terrified her. The outside slammed into Sansa, a biting breeze chilling her even with the warm cloak shrouding her body. The cold nipped at her nose and assaulted her ears and hands, while only her feet remained any sort of comfortable. Yet she still rushed to him. Podrick, you fucking idiot, what are you? Her berating died down when she turned him, seeing something altogether unexpected. Her lover's eyes held none of the modest yet vibrant sparkle in them. Instead, they were dead. A glassed-over stare, not looking at anything in particular. Shaking him lightly, Sansa saw them shift, in an instant, to a milky white, then just as quickly to normal, blinking. Podrick seemed to have reality restored on him. Why? The chill began to engulf the night, and he started shivering. Sansa, where am I? In the courtyard of Winterfell, she answered, wrapping an arm around him and guiding him inside. Why? Why am I here? His teeth were chattering. Sansa tried to meld herself to his side, give him some of her warmth. Let's get you to the fire. But he didn't seem to be listening to her, alternating between chattering and zoning out into space. Sansa, I don't know what's happening to me. They made it into the keep, and already the temperature was better. Don't talk. Just rest. Sansa didn't want to overstress him in this condition. I wake sometimes, and it's like I lose track of time. I'm scared. Likely just a nightmare, my love. She kissed his temple, feeling his skin starting to warm. Let's get you by the fire, and then in the morning, Vulcan can make sure you're healthy, all right? He could only nod in return, making her smile softly at him. Everywhere around them, yet nowhere around them, a pair of eyes was pleased with what was transpiring. So close to all the pieces falling into place. A proper skill for the future. Surrounded by her blood riders, Daenerys felt alone. It was a feeling she both had and hadn't had before. Growing up with just Viserys, not the most emotionally open person unless those emotions were anger or bitterness, she'd learned quite early to harden her heart and accept the lonely stature as a Targaryen princess or queen. Granted, Missandei and Jorah provided their welcome company, so too did Dirio for a time, but all were her servants in the end. Not equal and therefore not one she could simply open her heart to. Jon Stark was different. The last person she would have expected to worm his way into her affections, to love, and to be loved by. But she did. Daenerys loved him with every bit of herself, and such left her in her present state. Heading for the small council chamber, feeling slightly empty without him by her side. Was that wrong? Was it wrong that she didn't feel anything was wrong? In the short time that they had been lovers, his protected loyalty and his sound thinking truly had vaulted to the most valued counsel she'd ever heard. Yes, Daenerys wanted him advising her, wanted him by her side, openly her lover and her loyal general and warden of the North. Give it time. Be patient. Daenerys had no qualms acting on her own. It was just not something she wished anymore as she entered the chambers. At once, the assembled counselors rose from their seats around the painted table. "Your Grace," they all said. Pictures of deference. Daenerys studied them all. Barristan and Missandei looked concerned, while Tyrion was as gloomy as he usually was these days. Garland, Tyrell, and Theon were confused, seeming not to know the purpose of the meeting. If Varys felt anything, he gave none of it away. A sigh. "Well, let's begin." She turned to Barristan. "I was informed of a meeting of the small council. Why did you call it?" Dany had been in the middle of a comforting moment with Jon. She hoped her hair didn't show any signs of just how comforting it had been. "It was not I that called the council, Your Grace," stated Barristan. Varys cleared his throat. "It was I." All eyes fell on him. "Forgive me for disturbing you in your personal moments." Daenerys raised her brow. "How much do you know, Varys?" But as always, he was unable to read. "There is much in whispers from King's Landing." "Then tell me, what was so necessary to pull me at this late hour?" "Stannis Baratheon is to be married." Her lips pursed. "Oh?" Varys nodded. To Tynius and, "I assume she is to be legitimized." Her eyes widened. "Tygan, Tine Sand, the last remaining sand snake of the initial cadre of allies." Truthfully, Arianne was far more competent and didn't suffer from legitimacy issues, but Ilaria and her brood were still allies, and Euron's actions were ones she still meant to repay. A forced marriage, no doubt. It smelled of her and Drogo. Mayhaps, mayhaps not, but the situation is still thus. They are to be married, and her is new queen consort, a woman of clear youth and likely fertility. "He's marrying a bastard girl?" Garland laughed. "Oh, Stannis must be desperate, or besotted, didn't expect it, 'cause he always had the carnal interest of a limp carrot." He laughed again at his jape. Most ignored him, though Daenerys did admit it was mildly amusing. "So, Stannis is to have a fresh heir, one not infected with grayscale, or a girl." Tyrion snorted, chuckling. Missandei's eyes glared at him. "And how are either an issue? Because a male heir will legitimize him more, mayhaps give him the confidence to call off the peace negotiations," Tyrion replied. "Seems you couldn't predict this, Stark." "Then the dragons deliver fire and blood," announced Missandei, crossing her arms, and firm. "Stannis wouldn't dare." Barristan kept his hands in his hair. "Forget an heir. This is a disaster. Princess Arianne will never support us militarily if her cousin is the queen consort of the Stag." A dark pit formed in Dany's stomach. Losing Arianne and her Dornish allies, the only Westerosi kingdom that had been with her through the entire war, would be a disaster. Losing all the improved negotiating position that Grey Worm's victory had brought her, and then some. "Will Arianne switch sides?" "I doubt it." Varys gave his opinion. "There is no reason for her to switch sides normally, and this, I cannot be sure, but the whispers of Sunspear being committed to our cause prior to this makes me inclined to believe she will simply no longer provide soldiers to your effort." Daenerys sighed. "I cannot stop this marriage, can I? Lest you use your dragons, and then all efforts at peace would be dashed." "I must talk to Lord Stark on this." A soft, yet audible snort came from Tyrion, catching Dane's attention. "Something the matter, Lord Tyrion?" Silent for a moment, finally Tyrion settled his gaze on Dany. "Aye, talk to Lord Stark on this." Quite true. Her eyes widened momentarily before they narrowed. Watch yourself, my lord. I mean no disrespect to the man, Tyrion said, raising his hands. I'm just not sure why you'd rather confer with him instead of us. Your loyal advisors? Stark is still aligned with Stannis, your grace, Barristan pointed out. Do you think he knows something? Garland asked. Even if he did, would he tell you? Dany huffed, slightly annoyed. Jon Stark knows Stannis better than any of us. It's possible he may have useful information. Yes, it's possible he may have known they were to be married all along, Tyrion said. Knowing that coming here makes all the more sense. Stannis marrying Tiny cuts the Dornish off from us, putting you in a weaker position, possibly making you even more likely to be convinced of a ceasefire with Stannis. Barristan's eyes narrowed. Your grace, if that's true, we don't know it to be, Dain cut in, rather curtly. This conversation is merely assumptions. Well, your grace, assumptions or not, Varys began. It does make sense. Dauncey raked her brain, turning away, wondering the possibility of it all. It seemed so impossible to her. We don't know for sure. The room grew quiet, with Dauncey reserving herself. Tyrion and Varys shared a look. Seeing Dain seemingly fairly distressed at the notion of Jon's intentions not being rather noble confirmed their suspicions. At the very least, she had a deeper affection for him. Definitely deeper than the platonic nature typically required for a situation like this. If Stark knew that Tiny was going to be married to Stannis before coming here, then that has to change things, Tyrion added. If he didn't know before he landed here, Stannis certainly could have told him with one of those ravens he receives. What does him knowing even change? Missandei asked the room. Whether or not he knew doesn't change the fact that he came here willingly to broker peace. Jon Stark came here seemingly with good intentions. Varys said he acted like he was someone we could trust, or should try to, at least. However, if he hid from us the knowledge that Tyrion was to be married to Stannis, what else is he hiding? Could he have been lying to us all along? Tyrion mused. His ravens to Stannis could just be full of our secrets, he's learned, or perhaps the best way to infiltrate the castle. These claims have no bounds, no evidence, Daenerys told them firmly. They are baseless. How could we ever know for sure? Barristan inquired, stroking his chin. Well, why don't we just ask him? Varys said, plainly. Ah, straight to the point, Lord Varys, Tyrion nodded. I like that. Where is Jon Stark now? When no one answered, they all looked to Daenerys. Last I heard he was writing another raven scroll in his chambers, he said, drawing a near scoff from Tyrion. Narrowing her eyes, but deciding to ignore it, she ordered the two Unsullied, standing by the door, to go retrieve him. After what seemed like hours of awkward silence, the man in question arrived sandwiched between the two Unsullied. Your grace, my lords and lady, he offered to Missandei. Just being in his presence calmed Daenerys a bit. Lord Stark, she replied in her queenly voice, some information has been made known to myself and the small council that we would like to inquire to you about. Brow raised in slight confusion, Jon stepped closer to her. Missandei shifting over to allow him space at her side opposite Barristan, something all noticed with either curiosity or displeasure. I do not believe I left anything out. Negotiations require a level of trust and candor. I have found candor you speak of, Lord Stark, as if you are your father, Lord Eddard, Tyrion uttered rather sharply. Jon narrowed his eyes at Tyrion. Are you trying to accuse me of something, imp? Before any could respond, Daenerys met his eyes. Jon, she mouthed, gaining his attention. Lord Stark, have you deliberately failed to disclose the betrothal between Stannis and Tyrion Sand? Blinking, it became clear at that moment that either Jon was a far greater liar than anyone Daenerys had ever known, other than Varys, or her initial trust in him had been warranted. I know no one named Tyrion Sand. Who is she? She was the daughter of Oberyn Martell and Ilaria Sand, the former of which, the one the Mountain killed in a trial by combat, Jon finished. I am aware of him. So his daughter, was she the one that brought dawn to your cause? Initially Lady Elia, her sisters, and her, yes, she has been betrothed officially to Stannis. Jon gaped. Stannis is marrying her. A Dornish bastard, Tyrion stated, a manner that Daenerys felt was him deliberately picking words, something quite difficult for us to imagine Stannis doing unless he was planning some intricate political strategy of which you are a part of. Allegedly a part of, Missandei added, defending Jon. almost desperate in his own way. Daenerys had long since become an expert in reading him, or at least somewhat of an expert. Jon turned to her. Your Grace, I can assure you that I have no idea of this. Daenerys believed him. I am inclined to believe you, Lord Stark, she stated outright. But my council holds a more skeptical attitude, unfortunately. Forgive us if we find some skepticism, though. Barristan said, These matters, they are not ones to occur this quickly. I was imprisoned in the Red Keep for all but the last few days of my stay there. Stannis wasn't inclined to be candid with his romantic life. Tyrion snorted. You were the one he sent to negotiate with our queen, so don't try and fool us, Lord Stark. Mayhaps Lord Eddard would have been this naive, yet you are aught. He crossed his arms. And the fact you have begun an affair with Queen Daenerys makes us less inclined to trust you. Growing tense, Daenerys' head jerked in Tyrion's direction. You are out of line, she finally hissed. I may be, but that doesn't make what I've said false. Excuse me, Barristan gaped. An affair? The two of you? Around him, Missandei was nervous. Gerlin seemed bored, while Theon's eyes widened and stared at Jon. As for Jon, his only glance was upon Daenerys. Your Grace? A myriad of emotions crossed Jon's face from Daenerys' view. Surprise, anger, caution, and finally, once glancing at her, quiet confidence. So they found out, then. Daenerys sighed. There was no denying it. Yes, they did, though I'm not sure for how long. She glared at Tyrion and Varys. Varys spoke up before Tyrion could. It was our perception that certain behaviors between the two of you created the assumption that you two were engaged in a sexual affair, Varys said. So it was I that sent the handmaid to call for you, my queen. Dany drew silent, her eyes widened. Her displeasure was so high her brain failed to comprehend it. Feeling totally betrayed, she shot up from her seat. No one dared speak. Varys prepared himself to be berated. But it didn't come. In truth, Dany was so furious that she couldn't form words. Forrest raised his hands in surrender, at least using this chance to defend himself, though. Before you set the dragons on me, allow me to defend myself. Her eyes didn't move from Varys, though she could especially feel Jon's cool gaze on her, even though she didn't physically see him. While the desire to send him away to at least the cells rested heavily on her mind. Out of nowhere, she thought of Aemon. She knew that he wouldn't want her to act carelessly in rage. She imagined him saying something like, Calm yourself, child. Allow yourself a second to breathe before you act. In response, she merely sat back down. Her rage had subsided a bit, but nowhere near dissipated. She would hear him out, giving Varys a small nod. Lord Stark, you do not deny that you are an envoy of the avowed opponent of her grace, one who is currently engaged in a war with her for the Iron Throne. Such is an eventuality that I seek to prevent, Lord Varys, Jon answered without missing a beat, refusing to step away from Daenerys, whom he stood close to. She was heartened by so much that it surprised her. Yet, it is true that Stannis appointed me to act as his arbitrator with you, yes. A very odd position for you to claim. A neutral observer, yet having been the right-hand man for Stannis from his arrival at Castle Black to when her grace defeated you near Duskendale, which adds another layer of concern given what occurred to you while in her custody. He didn't react. If you think I blame her grace for what Daenerys did, then you are mistaken. As far as I'm concerned, she is blameless. Tyrion naturally was still skeptical. No one believes that, Lord Stark. It is the truth, Lord Tyrion. They glared at each other. Regardless, resumed Varys, the close eye on you was warranted, given all you represented, and how close you and her grace have been since you were a prisoner here. Thinking on it, Daenerys truly wished to at least discipline Varys for what he did, but was it treason? Daenerys definitely was, in spite of being in his view for her. Yet Varys hadn't done anything but keep tabs on Jon's whereabouts, a far, stickier area. We will discuss your role later, Lord Varys, she finally said, kicking the can down the road. Quite fair, but mayhaps we should hear this story from you. Daenerys nodded. It is true. Jon Stark and I have been engaged in a sexual affair. She moved to take his hands in his, though resolved not to disclose any of the feelings involved. It began upon his arrival here the second time and continues to this day. Tyrion covered his face with his hands, hearing Daenerys admit it completely. He shook his head, dragging his hands away. Truly, your grace. This a disgrace. A total disgrace. Barristan spoke up. My queen, you know I am always quick to defend you. However, I must insist that this improper relationship ends. It's a lack of judgment, to be frank, Varys added. Jon Stark is not our ally. Regardless of his current neutrality, if we choose to accept his word on it, he was a close confidant of our greatest enemy, Stannis Baratheon, and yet you willfully engaged in a sexual affair. Frankly, while your advice is candid and I appreciate that, I do not care. Daenerys replied simply, I am queen. I can do what I wish. Yes, you are, Tyrion said, near seething. But you've made a mistake. We cannot allow you to continue to make it. Daenerys scoffed. We cannot allow. What is it exactly you think you can do? You have no power here. My soldiers will not listen to you. You cannot make me do anything. I'm not sure who you three think you're talking to, Miss Yang piped up. Jon released Dany's hand, stepping to the side. I understand why you all are upset. Honestly, what has happened between Daenerys and I simply just happened. It was organic. There was an underlying feeling between us that had existed prior. But given the situation being as it was, we simply didn't recognize it. He cast her a look, one where only Dany could notice the tenderness in his gaze. So, when I returned here, it just fell into place. Well, that's just a lovely story, Stark, Tyrion said, dryly. Mayhaps you among all of us have the best story, but that doesn't level out any of our suspicions of you. Even now, as you say. Varys began, there were feelings before your return. If that's true, he grew quiet, but only for a moment. It could be assumed you told Stannis this. He would have then asked you if could gain the affections of her, with the purpose of manipulating her into doing, well, I can't even imagine. That's just not true, Jon retorted, not intending to betray his confidences with Daenerys. My purposes for coming here were just as I said, for peace. It sounds like to me that you returned here for the opposite reason, Stark, Tyrion said. You came here to sow discourse. He raised his hands. And look, you've already succeeded. Look at us, infighting, and for what? This is ridiculous, Dany sighed, stepping away from the table, turning her back to them. As far as I can see, you're the only ones causing any infighting. You're the only ones sowing discourse. The imp shook his head. You are truthful in one respect, Your Grace. This is ridiculous, Tyrion said. So, put an end to it. Let's get back on track. Our attention has been away from our goal for far too long. Send Jon Stark away, Varys said. We can still sue for peace. If that's what you truly want, though it is probably needless. On what grounds? Missandei asked, aghast. You have thrown around baseless, unfounded notions. How does that mean that Jon Stark is the problem? Wouldn't sending him away only antagonize Stannis Baratheon even further? A freed slave she might have been, intelligent, and associating quite closely with both Daenerys and her past owners, while they conducted political deals left her with sizable knowledge of statecraft. Your Grace is right, the two of you have been the only ones to cause trouble. Tyrion and Varys stared at Missandei with a sort of disbelief. It was Barristan who spoke up for them. In my opinion, Jon Stark has merely been a distraction, not a threat or malicious even in this, but a distraction nonetheless. I still think a peace treaty is pointless. We could take the capital in a day if we wanted. Finally, someone speak some sense, Garland said. I don't mean to intrude, Your Grace. I certainly am not as informed on the situation as the rest of you, but I agree with them. A siege even, Barristan added. If you want to keep the loss of life to a minimum, that's a good way to do it. Yes, Your Grace. A siege, Garland said. What if... Garland, Tyrell, Dany cut in. That is enough out of you. Sorry, Your Grace. Garland sank down. Well, Tyrion sighed. I think at this point, we should agree there should be some distance between the two of you. Dany scoffed, but Varys added, We are a united front on this, Your Grace. A united front against me in my own small council. Dany shook her head. Laughable. If it weren't so dangerous, those that lived through the doings of Daenerys Naharis should remember the dangers of thinking they know what is better for me than myself. Well, if we were like Dario Naharis, then we might have just tried to kill Jon Stark without even having this meeting, Tyrion said. As both he and the Queen tensed, Barristan interjected. Enough of that, Lord Tyrion. Comments such as those do not help matters one bit. Tyrion glowered, but nodded. Might I add, Varys raised a finger, Dario Naharis was a fool. However, in intention, he only wanted to help you. Oh yes, killing me, That helped the situation so much, Jon said plainly. You all, Dany began, gesturing to all of them, have helped quite enough. For the most part, your advice has been lacking. I've done nothing. She moved left, going around closer to Tyrion and Varys. If your strategic advice is falling short, why would anything you tell me about my intimate affairs be useful? I wouldn't classify advising against intimate affairs with an enemy. Dany pointed at Jon. He is not an enemy, a foe once, but nearly all my problems since landing here have been because you only sought to paint him as such. Tyrion scoffed. It was I that sought him as an ally initially, when he was but a prisoner taken in battle. Only now do I worry, since the first thing he has done is seduce you into his bed. Snorting, Jon leaned forward. If you claim to have known my father, Lord Tyrion, do you believe I have the capacity of seducing anyone? I cannot doubt the ability of anyone to do anything if it suits them, Lord Stark. Gazing once at Dany, mind whirring at a quick speed. Jon hoped she would not hold a front, but he knew it could only come from him. I did not seek out Queen Daenerys to be my lover. It just happened. I've been alone for so long that it wasn't till I joined with her that I felt somewhat whole again. He heard Daenerys' breath hitch ever so slightly. A joyful emotion. The joy was mirrored in Missandei, and even in Barristan to an extent. But I am still an arbiter of peace and cannot have her council think of me any less, or her any less. What are you saying, Lord Stark? Missandei asked. He sighed. While I refuse to give up her company, I will forswear any more intimate actions with her. Grace until after a peace has been declared. Such is my commitment, and I hope my past honor shall serve as my bond. Tyrion exhaled. Stark honor. Your father's honor meant a lot to him. His word was everything. Did he ever break a promise? Not on purpose, Jon said. Ned promising to talk about his mother right before leaving for King's Landing came to mind. That promise was broken, but not because Ned couldn't keep it. Like my father, my word is my bond. I do not break my word. Tyrion narrowed his gaze at Jon. He sensed Jon meant what he said. You keep that promise, Stark. I think that would be best, Your Grace, Barristan added. At least for now. I agree, Varys said. But what do you say, Your Grace? Jon asked Dany. He hadn't noticed she had been looking at him before. Her countenance was one of sorrow. Not so much everyone would notice, but he did. He knew that she wouldn't be happy with that arrangement, but neither was he. She sighed. I do not agree. However, if it gains me some peace in my own council, we will keep to it, though only since I shall not either dispense with your company. In truth, not a promise either of them thought they could keep. It would be rather difficult, pursing her lips in annoyance and simple frustration. The sudden throwing open of the door nearly caused Sansa to leap out of her chair. In the end, who did it wasn't a shock. Gods, Arya, can't you knock? Her little sister merely shrugged. Never used to do it, so why did you expect me to change? Cheeky, just like Robb. It ultimately brought a tiny smile to her face once her heart eased up enough. Still, I'd appreciate it if you just entered a little less abruptly. By now, Arya plopped down into a chair across from her. You summoned me, O wise lady of Winterfell. It was important to tear me away from sparring with Gendry, so lay it on me. Stannis, dead. Daenerys Targaryen, landing at White Harbor. Jon asked you to marry him. What? No, you're impossible. Arya smirked. Still got it. Seems you do. Sansa could banter back and forth with Arya all day. In fact, she liked it, reminding her of a simpler time that she hadn't truly appreciated till it came crashing down in a hail of steel and screams, but she couldn't afford to lose herself in the past. So sighing, she gestured to the letter on her desk. Raven from King's Landing. Little finger. Her sister's eyes widened, then grew serious. What does that insect want? First few lines are all rote shit, namely that King Stannis is marrying one of Oberyn Martell's bastards.
Oh, the Red Viper's girl?
I thought the Greyjoys slaughtered them all after they sided with the Dragon Queen. One of them survived, apparently. Rosier shook her head, laughing. The Dragon Queen is not going to like this. Then she winced. Neither is Jon, I suspect. No, Jon wouldn't. Sansa could only think that Daenerys could see it as a betrayal, in that Stannis was taking out one of her most valuable allies with a marriage instead of a slaughter, as if Robb had married Myrcella in the eyes of Stannis or Renly. But this was her brother, and she was grievously worried, which brought her back to, Littlefinger addresses that. He says he worries that Jon will not convince the Dragon Queen of peace unless Stannis' position is bolstered. As such, he's seeking to renew the North's allegiance. Fuck him. We're fine on our own. I would say that too, Arya, but we're close to starving. Like it or not, we need the Seven Kingdoms, or the Dragon Queen. Daenerys' gift of foodstuffs is all that's keeping us going. She's still sending him. At Sansa's nod, Arya whistled. She must really love Jon, then. Sansa blinked. You told me that he loved her, from what you saw. I could tell. Our brother fell hard. It was shocking, trust me. No doubt, but do you think she loves him? Never met her, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. He's a good catch. Daenerys Targaryen would be lucky to call him her lover, no matter what anyone says of her. Chuckling, Sansa couldn't help but admire Arya, defending Jon's virtues yet again, something she wished she had done more of in her childhood. Regardless, I've been debating whether I should go south, or at least send someone to negotiate with Daenerys and Stannis, she added. On that, Arya was truly surprised. You want to? I really don't want to leave the North, but I think it is a smart thing to do. I could go. No, you've been gone too long from home. Let me, I'm good at it. Another sigh, stubborn, impulsive Arya, as always. Just tell me, is it worth it to open trust to the Dragon Queen given what her father did to our family, or what she did to Jon? She shrugged. What I think doesn't matter since I never met her. Jon did. He suffered the most of anyone who isn't already dead at her hands, and if he loves her, then he clearly saw something that we don't. Just take it into account. Her words echoing in Sansa's mind, they replayed over and over as she walked down the torchlit hallways towards her chambers. Do I trust Jon to judge properly, or is he like any other man that thinks with his cock? The rumors were that Daenerys Targaryen was utterly beautiful, and if Jon was a functioning male, then he would think so to some extent, but she couldn't be sure. All Sansa knew was that, for Jon, nothing was more important than the North or the fight against the dead men he said were coming. The others, of this it could be more likely than not that his feelings for the Dragon Queen were genuine. More and more, she was inclined to trust him and send out the feelers, with enough to Littlefinger in order to ply him off. Heading to bed, my lady. It was Brienne, so Sansa smiled. You? No, I have guard duty tonight. I'll be in the privy for a bit, though. The pod is there, and I think he's good enough with the sword after so long at training. Both ladies chuckled at that. I'm glad he's been there for you. Sansa's smile widened. As am I. They passed by each other. Sansa sparing one last look at her sworn shield before heading to her chambers, desperate to be held by her love as he did every night. But upon entering, a gently snoring Podrick or patiently waiting Podrick wasn't whom she found. Instead, he was standing by the hearth, gazing into it, still as a stone. Her brows knotted in confusion. Pod? No answer. Is he in one of his dazes again? Her beloved hadn't been in one since that night, and she hoped. I worry. She stilled as he abruptly spoke, voice hollow and without emotion. Worry of what? Worry of you. He didn't make to look at her, simply staring further at the flames flickering in the hearth. That you might die by the hand of an assassin. A sigh. I worry sometimes on that as well, but your sister is an assassin. What, Arya? Sansa laughed awkwardly. Oh, she would never hurt me. Do not be so sure. Nodding her brows, Sansa approached Pod. What are you? He finally turned, face expressionless, but holding a knife. Pod, why do you have a knife? You must be afraid too. It was as if he didn't even hear her. Afraid of your sister, or why else would you bring Sandor Clegane? He's a renowned warrior. You think he can protect you better than me? What? No. What about Brienne? Is she strong enough? Stepping back, Sansa was incredulous. Pod, what are you talking about? No. Arya isn't a threat, but yes, having the Hound and Brienne around would protect me. I don't see why you need to bring this up. All of this was so sudden, it completely shocked her. Not to mention Sansa's eyes kept flickering to the knife. I see, so if it was me on that day, those men cornered you, in King's Landing, I wouldn't have been enough. Eyes widening, Sansa took another step back. Face going pale. Who told you of that? Even to him, she never explained what had happened when Sanzir had saved her in King's Landing. Why in seven hells would you bring that up? Do you want the Hound to protect you now? Pod, is something wrong? Am I not enough for you, Sansa? What? No. Gods, her mind was swimming, her lover shifting from one mood to another and from one topic to another, as if his mind was shattered, and then she gasped, watching him take the knife. Podrick, stop. He cut along his arm, a shallow cut, but one that allowed a trickle of blood to drip on the floor. Stop. But as she moved to stop him, Podrick shoved her back. Back away. He stopped, but his eyes stared intensely at her. Menacingly enough to frighten her. You know, Sansa, there are things even the great big hound can't protect you from. Pod, you're scaring me, Sansa whispered. What's wrong with you? Nothing. I've just came to my fucking senses. Podrick growled. What a mistake I made getting with you. You're weak. Before she could reply, he lashed out, striking her and sending her sprawling. See, weak. There was no time for screams or for tears. All other times she had been assaulted or brutalized, it had been expected from brutes or monsters. But now, never did she expect Podrick to do this. Podrick. She managed to gasp, only to see the blade shimmering in the low firelight. Podrick kept walking towards her, knife outstretched to her. Sansa held her hands up, utterly terrified. Pod, don't do this. I love you. Please, Sansa begged, tears arriving. I have to. I must. You're just a waste of skin, Podrick replied. Dumb bitch. Podrick's presence forced her into the corner of the room by the bed. I don't understand, Sansa said, tears streaming now. Was nothing we had real? Podrick chuckled dryly. None of it. I always hated you. That doesn't make any sense, Sansa shook her head. This wasn't him. It couldn't be. You love me. I know you do. You're sick, Pod. Put the knife down and we can figure this out. I only want to kill you, Sansa, Pod said. Just let it happen. You deserve it. Suddenly Brienne busted through the door, sword drawn. Sansa, she froze at the sight. Podrick levels a fist into Sansa's face on top of the bed. Podrick, what are you doing? When she stepped forward, Pod picked up Sansa. He backed up, now holding his knife to her throat. Sansa appeared dazed from the blow to the head. Brienne. Don't, Podrick, Brienne said. Put the knife down. Podrick sighed. You're not supposed to be here. Leave Sansa alone, Podrick. What are you doing? I plan on killing her, actually, Pod said. Matter-of-factly. What? Brienne gasped, putting both hands on her sword. Listen to me, Brienne, Podrick backed up further. You come any closer, I'm gonna slash your throat. Actually, toss that fucking sword, or I'll do it right now. I don't understand, Podrick. What has gotten into you? Enlightenment. Sansa began to wrestle against Podrick. Stop this, Pod. Now. Podrick tightened his grip on her, the knife pressing even closer to her neck. Stop fucking moving, bitch. You cut your own throat. Brienne inched ever closer. You need to drop that knife, Podrick. Fuck you, Brienne, Pod replied. You drop that sword, or I'm going to force you to break your oath to Lady Catelyn by ending Sansa right now. Brienne huffed, glancing at the open door, wondering why no other guardsmen had appeared by now. She did throw her sword to her right, hoping the clang against the stone floor would cascade throughout the castle. There. Now, let's just take this easy. I'm terrified, Brienne. Sansa said. It's going to be all right, Lady Sansa, Brienne told her. Oh, no, it's not, Podrick said, smirking. It most certainly will not be all right. There's still blood to be shed. There doesn't have to be. Just let me go, Pod, Sansa pleaded. Please don't do this. Listen to her, Podrick. What you gonna do, Brienne? You're gonna have to kill me to protect her, Pod laughed. Can you do that? Brienne clenched her fists. Please don't make me. Sansa's tears soaked her face. Podrick, please. Both of you shut it. Enough talk, Podrick snarled. He moved his knife hand away, raising it up to bring it back down. Sansa noticed this. Her instincts kicked in. She began to wrestle again. She elbowed Podrick's ribs, which was enough to loosen his grip on her. Brienne planned to use this window. She bolted forward, throwing a shoulder into Pod's chest, taking them both to the ground, knocking Sansa to the side. Podger lost grip of the knife, but it didn't go far. On his back, he reached for it. Brienne saw this, and reached for it as well. They fought for it. Sansa was knocked aside with so much force from Brienne, her head hit the ground, knocking her unconscious. Podrick, stop this. Brienne yelled. Pod held the knife with one hand, but Brienne held his arm down. She tried desperately to get his fingers off of the knife. Podrick started to punch at Brienne, with his other hand. Some blows missed, some glanced against her armor. The next punch got lucky connecting with Brienne's nose. Pod put enough force behind it to break her nose. Blood leaked out. "Ha!" Brienne groaned. The punch froze her. Podrick managed to free the hand with the knife. Quickly, he located a gap in her armor on her lower right side, right above the hip, jabbing the knife in there. He felt it dig in deep. He watched Brienne's face twist with pain. With her completely shaken, he threw another punch to her face to get him off of him. Brienne fell flat on her back. Her hand went to her wound, finding it spilling with blood. Podrick rose to his feet. "I'd put that armor on you enough times to know where the chinks in it are." He walked over to Sansa, still out cold. "Oh, you have to be awake for this. I want to hear your screams." He lifted her back on the bed. With the back of his hand, he slapped her twice. The shock did force her to awaken. As soon as she opened her eyes, she screamed, "No! No!" "Whoa!" Podrick laughed, then slapped her again to quiet her, holding a hand around her neck. "Not quite that loud. I don't know how much more time we have together, darling. Don't want the whole castle waking up just yet." Brienne rolled over onto her knees. Her blood had spilled to the ground. "Podrick, don't do this." "We are all powerful," Podrick laughed. "This is what must happen." He raised his knife hand high up. Time slowed to crawl for Brienne as she watched. Sansa was in lethal danger. The knife slowly moved down to her. Hallowed words rang out in her mind. "I offer my services. I will shield your back, give my life for yours, if need be." A renewed strength filled her. Podrick still moved slowly, but she moved faster. She rose to her feet. The pain from her stab wound all but disappeared. She grabbed Pod by the shoulders. With all her strength, she threw him off of Sansa. Podrick hit the wall behind them, falling to the ground. Podrick gasped for air, vacating his lungs after hitting the wall, totally confused. "What? How?" Brienne checked on Sansa. "Are you all right, my lady?" "Yes, barely," Sansa scratched out. Podrick got to his feet, having dropped the knife. He picked it back up. "This is not over." Hearing him, Brienne quickly located her sword. She stood in front of Sansa, pointing her blade at Podrick. "It's over, Podrick." "It's not over till she's dead," Podrick said, pointing the knife at her. "Podrick," Sansa yelled. "Don't make me do this," Brienne whispered, hands tightening around Oathkeeper. Podrick bellowed, running straight at them, knife held high. Brienne acted quickly, using a lateral slash to cut Pod's hand with the knife, severing fingers. Then, to end it all, she pushed Oathkeeper straight through his chest and out the other side. Podrick stiffened, limbs going limp, his eyes went wide. Sansa covered her mouth, stifling her cries. Through gritted teeth, Brienne started to sob. They watched Podrick's eyes suddenly wash over a pale white, but only for a moment. Then they returned to normal. His body trembled, head hanging. Then he gasped. His head flew back up. His face now showed complete fear and confusion. Brienne withdrew her blade. As a result, Pod's body fumbled to the ground. Sansa went to his side, holding his head in her lap. Podrick started to wheeze and gasp, his hands patting his bloody chest. "What?" he muttered. "Ah," Pod. Sansa wept, tears falling onto his hair. Hearing her voice, he looked up at her. He managed a small smile. "Sansa," watching this, Brienne dropped to her knees, her sword falling from her grip. Unable to form words, she just shook her head, shaking with emotion. Slowly, Podrick raised his hand up to Sansa's face. His thumb brushed over her cheek softly. Sansa rested her forehead against his. "I love you," she said. "So much." "Sansa, Sansa." Podrick felt the darkness closing in. His hand fell back down. But his eyes watched Sansa closely. She held his face with both her hands. "Don't go, Pod, please," she cried. Podrick smiled one more time at her before time stopped completely for him. The pain was gone, but leaving her hurt far more than being stabbed. His last thoughts were something about how beautiful she was. Brienne fell to her side, her body reminding her she'd been stuck with a knife. The pain was so great she passed out. Noticing he was truly gone, Sansa wailed toward the sky. A large tarp with the sigil of House Stark was draped over the body. Arya stood with her hands behind her back, biting her lip as it was slowly brought in by 4 guards of House Stark, Brienne of Tarth in the van. The powerful lady warrior looked close to collapse. eyes red and barely put together, completely understandable. For Podrick Payne had been her squire, her only squire. "Why is he in stark colors?" Rickon asked, pointing to the corpse. He had dressed in his full armor, ones that bore the gray direwolf. Had there been more people than the odd half-dozen, excluding the guards within the crypts, some might have raised more of a stink on it. As it sat, Arya didn't have any qualms about it. He was our sister's love, he was family, brother, regardless of the formal shit. Oh, I understand. Sometimes she forgot little Rickon was wise beyond his years. Sansa, unlike Brienne, hadn't shed a tear. Dressed in dark gray with a thick black cloak draped upon her shoulders, she clasped her hands in front of her, eyes never taken off Podrick as he was brought to the prepared tomb, and slowly lowered into it, waiting for Brienne to whisper her final words to the boy so long by her side, then walking till she was by his head. "I love you, Pod," she murmured loud enough for only Arya and those close to her to hear. Sansa leaned down, kissing his lifeless head. "I shall see you one day, and we will be happy again." Wincing at the sorrow that was clear in Sansa's soft words, Arya thought back to when she had raced into her chambers, witnessing Sansa in a hysterical state, bruises all over her throat and body while Brienne was wounded and bleeding, both screaming and crying over a dead Podrick, a pool of blood around him and face completely pale. Only after Maester Wolkan had sedated Sansa into a fitful sleep with milk of the poppy did Brienne finally stammer out what had happened. Arya couldn't believe it, Podrick turning traitor, trying to hurt Sansa, yet Sansa still mourning over him. How could he have done it? How? She wanted to hate him, to comfort Sansa as such. But truly Arya didn't think him capable. That's what truly gnawed at her, to that moment. As the lid of the sarcophagus was dropped atop the tomb, Yaxley noticed Sansa's shoulders sag. Her composure began to falter, as her frame shuddered and trembled. The wild wolf's heart broke for her sister, quickly turning to embrace Sansa tightly. "Oh, Sansa!" While a full head taller than Arya, Sansa still buried her head in Arya's shoulder, sobbing softly. I can't. I'm here, Sansa. I'm here." Never had they been close before. Childish spats and worthless posturing, always getting in the way. But here they were, a family culled in tragedy after tragedy. Father, Uncle Benjen, Robb, mother, by some stroke of luck. She, Sansa, Jon Bran, and Rickon escaped their respective hells and traumas, only for reality to remind them that no happy endings were forthcoming for the Starks. Just let it out. He deserved something more than this, as a grand ceremony, with armored knights and garlands and trumpets. A send-off for the hero he was, my hero. Her words dissolved back into sobs. I believe he would understand the need for modesty. Winter grew worse and worse by the day. Resources needed to be husbanded, lest they be stretched thin. When the time came for war again, we buried a knife of dragonglass into his neck just in case, as Jon ordered. To be buried in the crypts as a Stark would, an honor greater than any ceremony. Sansa pulled back but kept her hand clasped to Arya's. I will be buried next to him when the time comes. When my life is over, I shan't be apart from Pod for a moment longer. Her lip quivered, but aside from a few tears down her cheek, she kept her composure. Yet I cannot, not yet. We all have our duties for the wars to come. We will fight together. I promise. Aye, but not just that. Aira. Raising her brow in confusion, it dawned on the younger Lady Stark, though only titularly on her part, when she noticed Sansa cupping her belly with her free hand. Oh my gods! She couldn't even finish. The wan smile formed on Sansa's face. With a child. I am, she sighed. Wolkan told me last night. I still can't believe it. But how? I think you should know that, Sansa tried to jape, but it didn't help elevate her mood. Not that. How did you let it happen, given what is coming our way? She pursed her lips in anger. You think I planned this? Sansa hissed. That I'd want my child born into this hell? But I do not regret it. Something of Podage shall live and grow and breathe and love when memories of him fade into near nothing. A babe of both of us, one I love already. She rubbed her belly protectively. Podrick's child, not Ramsay's. Sansa was insistent on that point. The child of my love. Arya smiled in spite of herself and embraced Sansa. One I love as well, my niece or nephew. Having overheard, Rickon gasped. You're pregnant? He ran over and joined the embrace. I wish father and mother were here. So do we, little pup. So do we. Trapped willingly in the embrace. Arya had noticed Bran sitting on his wheelchair a distance away, completely passive in that way of his lately, though for a single moment she could have sworn that a ghost of a smirk was upon his face. But it was gone in an instant. Is my mind playing tricks on me? It had to be. Their brother was changed from his time north of the Wall, but malicious he was not. Who among them hadn't been rendered colder since this all started? Jon, Sansa, Rickon, Bran, and I, all hardened by reality. The gusts of winter wind cleared her mind, Arya tightening the cloak about her as she hurried to the side of the woman she sought to speak with. Brienne! Shivering herself, the blonde warrior looked down to see the diminutive fighter falling in step beside her. Lady Arya, do you have time to speak? A shrug. What else can we do? Better than dwell on thoughts that are universally dark. Not the best, but permission was granted. I need to know if you thought Podrick was capable of this. Brienne stopped in the middle of the courtyard. Sansa was still in the crypts next to the sarcophagus, while the rest had quickly dashed inside, leaving the two of them alone in the snow. I remember everything of that night, Lady Epsia, and I do not wish to relive it again. It's important. No, I can't. Fight the Hound, though. She could. Brienne was unable to handle it. Such memories were too painful. I don't care how important you think. Sansa's with child. Brienne's eyes widened like saucers. And I'm sure you know who the father is. For the sake of Sansa and the child, I want to know if you think my niece or nephew's father is a traitor, a rapist, and murderer in the making. She felt slightly guilty at the manipulation, but it was necessary. It also worked. No, I do not believe so. Why? Arya said over the howl of the wind. I've met many cutthroats and thugs, and Podrick wasn't one of them. I've met many abusers of women, and Podrick didn't seem like one, but you knew him better than I did. Look, many men seem good only to turn out to be horrible in private, but Podrick wasn't like that. However, I make my determination based on that night, and that night alone. Why? The question repeated. Brienne sighed. He simply seemed out of it. Gods, it was painful, like in a trance. Perfectly lucid and angry, but it simply sounded like someone else with his voice. Rousseau knew that feeling, but it couldn't have been a faceless man. Perhaps they came up with some sort of bewitching curse. Turn the real confidants of their targets into assassins. Anything else? I'm not sure. Lady Sansa would know more than me. She saw him at the end when he was dying. It was as if he had woken up from a dream, only into a nightmare of his own making. The old Podrick returned, confused. Yet in agony from dying, a tear fell down her cheek. From my killing blow. Nodding, Arya reached up to pat her shoulder. It's all right, Brienne. You need not speak more. I know what I need. Heading back to the keep for some warmth by the fire. And in Gendry's arms, Arya knew that this was just one layer of the onion she needed to peel. Fate had brought her back to Winterfell. And perhaps the god of death would obtain his sacrifice here in her childhood home, rather than elsewhere. Only death can pay for life, and only life can pay for death. You are tense, your grace. Eyes narrowing, Daenerys glared at Missandei with frustration. I am astounded with your keen observation, Missandei. As her loyal handmaiden flinched at the unnecessarily biting comment, Daendiai's gaze softened. Forgive me, it is not you that deserves my ire. Yes, I am tense. Why wouldn't I be tense without Jon Stark? You truly love him, don't you? Aside from Jon and at that one disastrous session of her small council, did Daenerys ever tell anyone of how she felt for him? She felt Missandei knew from the beginning the depths of her feelings from the beginning, how hateful irritation morphed through several stages into the deepest love. But now came the explicit question. I do, by the gods, I love him more than I ever thought it was possible to love a person. Missandei smiled. Of all of them, she was the only one to care about Daenerys, the person, not just Daenerys, the queen. I am happy for you. He truly does make me happy. That I can actually wake to more than just my drive for the throne, even if I will never have children. If Missandei noticed a melancholic thought upon her expression, she said nothing. You defended him against the attacks from Tyrion and Varys, and the concerns of Barristan. Her word choice was odd, as was her omission of Garland and Theon. Theon would support Jon, while Garland could care less, she thought. Do you think there is something to what they say? They both walked on the beach. Dane sees blood riders posted far behind them. Dressed in their leather dresses and cloaks, both looked truly their best, but alone they needed to be. Under the howl of the sea wind, that was the safest place they could go, even if it did remind Dany about when she traveled down this path with Jon. When she had first truly begun to fall for him, honestly, no, they are wrong about him. He is loyal, her heart soared, but Dane's face was expressionless. Why do you think so? I could say that I trust you, that I do. I could say that what he is pushing you to do is actually a prudent course of action, which is true. What I can tell you is that I can read people, read those that were in bondage as I was. Their fronts and facades that they wore when around their masters and mistresses to hide what they truly were. In these moments did Dane remember just how battered and bruised a life that sweet, delicate Missandei had to harden her, form the steel beneath the softness that Dane also possessed. The only time Jon Stark has that is when he is forced to speak with your counsel. When he looks at you, that is genuine. You truly believe that? I believe it since it's the truth. Daenerys smiled. Thank you. She took Missy's hand and then hugged her lightly, a hug that she returned. Her happy expression fell, though, thoughts shifting. What of Tyrion? Of Varys? Missandei's expression changed too. Varys is hard to read, though he reminds me a bit of myself when I was with Krasinys. As for Tyrion, she shook her head, grimacing. Watch out for him. Why? If anyone would betray you, it is he. Daenerys blinked. I value your opinion, Missandei, but that seems a bit harsh. He's a snake, not a lion, your grace. Be wary. They began walking again, boots kicking up bits of wet sand. His sister is dead, and his brother is in your care. Jon's care, and that will keep him from betraying you in the form of actual treason, but what consumed Dario at the end will do so with him. Worse even. Her eyes darkened, violet turning almost black. Nothing could be worse than what Dario did to me. Her beloved Jon, dead upon the floor of the throne room, was her worst memory. Only the death of Rigo matches it. Missy pursed her lips. Forgive me, your grace, but hear me out. Dario did what he did out of his supposed love and loyalty for you. When Tyrion does worse, it will be to impress you, only to keep his position, or to gain vengeance on you for giving Jaime Lannister to Jon, or rather vengeance on him. Mayhaps you should take over Jaime's care. Brow-raising, Dany looked at her closest friend. I'll consider it. It could lower the burden on her, Jon, and it wasn't as if Jaime had anyone left to betray her for. Well, what do you think about... Dany stopped mid-sentence. She gestured up the beach to a skiff arriving on the shore. A few men pulled it in. She noticed two women still sitting in the boat, both wearing bright red, a man dressed in all black, with a hood over his head. Who are they? I'm not sure, your grace, Missandei frowned. Shall we go see? Dany said. Might as well, Missy replied. The two women strolled on toward the small crowd. She quickly realized the women were Red Priestesses. Her brain began to race. She gathered one of them must be Melisandre, the one who brought Jon back to life. But a second one, the man dressed in black, stayed in the skiff, while the priestesses got out of the boat. As they got closer, the two priestesses in question started moving towards them. Isn't that the woman who brought Jon back to life? Missy asked. Yes, and she's brought a friend, Dany said. Melisandre opened her arms and bowed slightly. The other priestess mirrored her. Your grace, it is good to see you again, Mela said, smirking. Certainly wasn't sure I would see you again, Dany replied. Your departure last time was rather mysterious. I had places I needed to be. Who've you brought with you? Dane said, gesturing to the other priestess. I am Kinvara, your grace, the woman said. A fellow follower of Rhaegar. You need not explain. I am familiar with you from when you were called to Meereen by my advisors, Dany said. Though both of you have performed services for me, why have the both of you come? Exactly. The last time Melisandre was here, she brought Jon Stark back to life. Yes, Kinvara asked. Dany was hesitant to answer, for some reason, but replied. Yes. Well, we have used Rosier's power for that same purpose again, Kinvara said. We found someone for you. He was also lost to the darkness, Melisandre added, just like Jon Stark. She was confused, but wouldn't show that to these two. Dany didn't trust them, even if she wouldn't be hostile to them. Well, that is interesting, Dany said, but what does that have to do with me? You know him, Your Grace, Mel said. You know him quite well. As if on cue, the man dressed in black stepped out of the boat. He walked directly at them. The Lord wished for his return. Your Grace, Kinvara said. He still has things to do here. Priestesses with the power to bring people back to life. What great power they hold. Who else did they bring back? Why had they brought this person to her? About 5 seconds later, Jamin's questions were answered. She and Miss Nade had gotten close enough. Now, the man dressed in black tossed his hood back, revealing his face. A shocking sight, a man she thought had been lost to her. Jorah Mormont in the flesh, standing before her. She froze. No, it can't be. It could. Jon was brought back to her. Why not? I swore I would return to you, Khaleesi, he said, voice hoarse with emotion, both like he was before, and so very different. You made me swear, and I serve only you. Hand trembling, she reached up to touch his cheek. There were scars barely visible on his neck from the grayscale, but the skin was warm to the touch. Scarred but healthy. You're cured. It took a lot more than I expected, but I am. He reached up and clasped her hand in his, and my sword is still yours. Jorah, without hesitation, Dany threw her arms around him, uncaring of her title. He had gone from her, and just as Jon, he returned. Jon, do you remember me, Jorah? How could any man forget you, Khaleesi? Tears pricking at her eyes, Daenerys simply tightened the embrace. By the grace of the gods, if there were any, that was, those lost so treasured to her had returned. Jon twice. Sure, twice as well. I am blessed, it seems to me. Feeling Jorah's arms around her, Missy's loving touch on her shoulder, perhaps she truly was. It truly heartened her for the storm that was sure to come. There you are, my lady. My lady. Lady Martell, do you mind sitting still? I must finish with your hair. Lady Martell. For the longest time, Tyrion hadn't truly cared that her name was Sand and not Martell. In Dorne, it did not matter. Her parents were both of noble blood, even if her mother was also a Sand, and those around her didn't truly care about such blood. It wasn't an issue in Dorne, and with her Uncle Dorne having 3 healthy heirs, then nothing was likely to occur where she would need to be legitimized. Once she was old enough to travel with her father, the sneers came from those with better blood than Contents. She and her eldest sisters had adopted it as something to be proud of. Beautiful women that everyone lusted for, but could slit throats if need be. Eventually, all the scum were fearful of them, but never did she ever imagine being legitimized. Perhaps in the instance that her Uncle Doran's line went extinct. But never this. Never to be Tammy Martell, Queen Consort of the 7 Kingdoms. Mother Rowan truly had a sense of humor. Mother, father, you would find this truly amusing. Her sisters would likely tease her till the end of time. Tyrion wished they were by her side, annoying as they would be. Gods, she was alone. There, all done. Her hair had grown out, and in the mirror cleaned and truly beautiful. His Grace will gasp at your beauty. I am sure he would, though in his own way. His Grace is not very expressive. Thankfully, almost astonishingly, Stannis seemed truly besotted with her, and that brought her certain leverage. All her maids were Dornish, for example. There were many in the ruins of King's Landing, and loyal to her as could be. I wish my family was here, though. A knock on the door revealed one of the Kingsguard. My lady! Tyrion hadn't bothered to learn any of their names aside from that of the Lord Commander, one of Robert Baratheon's many bastards. His Grace has a guest for you. Ah, someone he wishes for me to treat, she said sarcastically. Scuffing feet followed until a voice made Tyrion tense. Ty, rising and turning, Tyrion gasped. Elaye, the slender woman in a modest Dornish gown, much like hers, but less extravagant, found tears in her eyes. Tears returned as they rushed to each other. Thank the gods, we all thought we lost you with Mother. Tyrion hugged Adia Sand tightly, thinking if she opened her eyes this could all be a dream. I am so relieved to see you. Adia, her full sister and the closest one to her own age, they had been kept at the Water Gardens and thus were safely in Ariane's care. Stannis sent for you. Cousin Ariane sent me here, though Stannis did ask for her to come. Safer this way, given the other claimants to the Iron Throne. Understandable, and best left unsaid. At least you are here. Nodding, Ia just clasped her hands. There were questions dancing in her eyes, but thankfully she would save them for later. Instead, just smiling. "You look beautiful." "Thank you," she trembled. "Just stay close." "I will, and I brought another friend." She stepped aside to reveal Sir Damon Sand, another confidant, and her father's squire. Tyene hugged him too, and Sir Damon extended his hand to offer her an escort, to give her away. With this and Aed by her side, Tyene took in a breath, ready to see this through. She had no choice, and it could always be worse. The ceremony was to be in the throne room. Iron throne looming high in lieu of the statues of the great sept of Baelor, destroyed long ago by Cersei Lannister. The retinue of the Baratheon court watched her, differing emotions on their faces. Some, such as Randall Tarly, had thinly veiled hostility towards an avowed enemy of the crown, while others, such as the allied Crown Lords and Storm Lords, were neutral, if supportive. None could compare to the awed gaze of the Stag King himself. Dressed in his fine royal doublet, with the burning stag of his house emblazoned on it, the crown of his brother on his head, his entire sour expression lit up as she arrived. Yet another man that lusted for her, but this was the king. Clearing his throat, the old Septon looked upon the bastard bride and kingly groom. "Who comes before the gods tonight?" "Tyene of House Martell," began Daemon Sand, himself trying to keep a neutral but polite tone. "Daughter of Prince Oberyn of House Martell and his paramour, Elarius Sand. A woman of age, legitimized by decree as it was. No one could allege that Tyene Martell was true of birth according to the dictates of the Andals, and they wouldn't pretend such. Who gives her away?" "Sir Daemon Sand, sworn sword to her cousin, Princess Arianne Martell of Dorne. Her absence was noted by most, but Daemon and Elia's presence was good enough. Enough for Stannis at least, the one person among all of them to hold a bright smile, as bright a smile he could give. Who prepares to claim her?" continued the Septon. The tiny smile widened, many surprised at how the dour old stag was genuine in his joy. "Stannis of House Baratheon, King of the Andals, and the Rhynar and the First Men, the prince who is promised, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm." Reaching out his hand, Stannis graciously took, tynized when she left Daemon's side, stepping with a trembling gait but firm set in her eyes to position directly beside her soon-to-be husband. "Father, what would you think of me at this moment?" A pragmatic man when it came to it, she knew that Oberyn wouldn't begrudge her this. A viper does not attack till the right moment, till the prey is too close to flee and too relaxed to attack. Words she took to heart. The Septon, white-haired and stooped, cleared out the phlegm in his throat. "You may now cloak the bride," Tyene heard the Septon drone, "and bring her under your protection." Turning, Tyene shivered with apprehension and slight fear as Stannis's warm fingers brushed her bare neck, lingering lustfully in removing her orange cloak. The marriage was political, yet he desired her all the same. She knew not what to make of that, only that it gave her some form of protection, as Iakia said. One she would need to use, and use wisely. "My lords, my ladies, we stand here in the sight of gods and men to witness the union of man and wife, one flesh, one heart, one soul, now and forever." Knowing her role, Tyene reached out to weave her fingers into his, making his eyes widen, but then soften. Regardless of his age, those blue eyes didn't lose their vibrancy. A tiny smile curled onto her face, forced, but not really. A husband actually in desire of her was better than a monster, or brute seeking her as a conquest. She vowed to ensure he knew of her appreciation of that. The Septon slowly took the ribbon, tying it around their joined hands. Literally tying the knot that would seal their marriage. "Let it be known that Stannis of House Baratheon and Tyene of House Martell is one heart, one flesh, one soul. Cursed be he who would seek to tear them asunder." There truly were only two that could do so, herself as the viper she was, or the Dragon Queen. Woe to be to the one that faced a dragon in battle. In the sight of the seven, I hereby seal these two souls, binding them as one for eternity. And so it is done. Behind the king, Tyene could see Lord Hand Baelish eye her. Was that hunger of his own, or something far more sinister? If I can have him killed, that would be safest for me. Look upon each other and say the words. Tyene spoke simultaneously with Stannis, his eager and hers. It sounded eager to the untrained eye. Father Smith, warrior, mother, maiden, crone, stranger, I am hers. I am his, and she is mine, and he is mine. From this day until the end of my days, Stannis began to recite the words he had longed to say since seeing this beautiful creature, her radiant comeliness evident even under the grime and shit of Euron Greyjoy's brutality. With this kiss, I pledge my love. He had barely finished the last word when he lurched down, kissing her with all the passion he allowed himself to express. Tywin was surprised at the reserved Stag King's forwardness, but she forced herself to reciprocate. He was inexperienced, but firm, powerful. Not entirely unpleasant. Perhaps this stag could be molded to be not entirely a chore to bed. Given what she had heard, this man was essentially a virgin, after all. No man or woman would truly wish to bed that hag of a wife. A large feast. A glorious feast. One's always useful for placating one's supporters and wooing neutrals, which included a few Dornish lords that accompanied her sister Elia. But Tywin heard whispers that Stannis shed his brooding prudishness and ordered a lavish celebration of his wedding. A feast akin to those Robert threw, plenty of fine food, plenty of the finest wines, captured gold of House Tyrell and House Lannister, paying for the best. He himself never was far from her side, and rarely removed a hand from her body. Certainly, he was reserved as would a shy virgin, but unable to help himself, enchanted by his wife. Your graces... Tywin looked up to see Lord Baelish bow low. Many congratulations on your marriage. Thank you, Lord Hand, Stannis answered for both of them. And how does the lady feel? Tjordan paused, pursing her lips. Thankful to have married someone that shows himself to appreciate me so, completely the truth in the absence of any lie seemed to stump him a bit. He shows no weakness, but the silence is clear. Stannis replied before Baelish could. Aye, my Dornish rose. He raised his hand and kissed it. Those of my house have fought Dorne for generations, but it is not the roses from across the Red Mountains that have harmed me. Instead, they bring light back into my life. Tywin was surprised, as was Baelish. I knew not you were a poet, Lord Stannis. A snort. You know very few things about me, Littlefinger. You are my hand, not my wife or mother. Littlefinger bowed again. I admit I could not begin to compare to their beauty. Your Grace, I wish your marriage well. At a nod from Stannis, he departed. Leaning into Stannis, Tywin whispered in his ear, Is there a reason he is your hand, rather than the last one that greeted us? Ser Davos. Davos. He was a good man, but his loyalty is suspect due to his good heart. Littlefinger is a snake, but I am the only one he can work for. He'll support me well. Whatever you say, husband, something I'll need to keep an eye on. Stannis was a gentleman above all, and thus there was no bedding ceremony. Her maids and Elia guided Tainy back to the royal chambers and helped her undress into a loose nightgown. Good luck, Elia said, kissing her cheek. I have been granted a chamber in the Red Keep as Ariane's ambassador in a manner of speaking. She sent one to Daenerys as well. We will talk in the morning, I promise. Once Iaksu was gone, Tydseer's smile faltered, sighing and wrapping her arms around herself protectively. She was a Martell for all of a week. Now she was a Baratheon. Stannis had put the stag cloak about her shoulders himself. Speaking of Stannis, he arrived in naught but a tunic and trousers. Wife. Husband. She rose. We are alone, so may I be frank. Tynir rehearsed this in her mind for the longest time. Stannis was firm and decisive in all else, but his obvious inexperience in the bedchamber made her speculate he might be, mayhaps able to be led. She had hit a treasure chest. You may. The look in Stannis's face was of a green boy. How many lovers have you had? I know you were married and have a daughter, but are you truly experienced in matters of sex? He put up a brave face. My wife and Lady Melisandre once. Stannis seemed ashamed of that. Giving him a gentle smile, Tywin let her nightgown fall to the pool at her feet, leaving him speechless at her nudity. Kiss me, please. His head lowered while hers raised, leaving their lips to lock. Delighted he was, but also apprehensive and hesitant, something that brought a bit of frustration to her. Let me do this, Tywin sighed. She gave him a stiff push. Stannis tipped over onto his back on the bed. I can handle you. Stannis huffed. What do you mean? Tywin began to climb on top of him. Just let me. It'll be easier this way. What way? Tywin straddled him, beginning to unlace his trousers. Will you stop asking questions? Down they came, revealing his tightly bandaged leg, left dry and an artificial smell. But his cock, truly in spite of his confusion. He did find this arousing. Just sit still. You will like it. Trust me. Taichian, dear wife. But all words died on his tongue, Taichian's form sliding down his body and taking him in her mouth. Fuck. The former sand snake smiled to herself. Mayhaps she could wrap this man, this king, round her little finger. He woke up in a fit, coughing even before he opened his eyes. That had happened before, but AJ knew it to be different. A feeling, but his feelings since first joining the Citadel had usually been correct. It was close to the end, and he wanted his family. Samwell, ever present near his bedside, was leaning over him and listening to his breathing. I'll get you a draught for that, master. Please, Sam. His coughs were getting worse, not better. Bring me Daenerys. I need to see my niece. Whatever awkwardness and bitter feelings he held for the Dragon Queen found Sam strong enough to put them to rest for Jon and Aemon. It surprised him, but came in handy. I think her grace is out of the keep at the moment. I noticed her and Lady Missandei journeying for the beach. Truth be told, the exotic Nathi was more beautiful than Daenerys. Given Gilly being a wildling was just as far off and exotic to Hornhill as Nath was, Sam clearly had a type. Then, where's Jon? Jon, he's still in the keep. I'll have him fetched for you. One of the guards was well enough for the task, allowing Sam to prepare the draught for Aemon. It was steaming, sweetened with honey and cinnamon from the Summer Isles for Aemon's sake. He sipped it slowly, and, helped. Such was all anyone could do for Aemon. Help, and that was enough for the man that lived over a century since he had his family with him. The last Targaryen, but she is no longer alone anymore. Not with dear Jon. To see Daenerys light up whenever he was mentioned. To see her in the most expressive of joy given what she went through. That brought a sense of peace to Aemon's heart that he had never truly known. As all the drought disappeared down his gullet, Jon burst in. Sam! His face was pale. He came in with a raven scroll gripped tightly in his hand. But he stuffed it in his black tunic. How is he? Is he close? Not at this minute, Jon. I promise, Sam insisted. But it will happen by tomorrow. A few days at the most. Jon's face was filled with fear. Yamin was one of the few he had clear memories of, and an instinctive bond he knew not what was the cause of. Kneeling at the foot of Aemon's bed, he took the old maester's gnarled hand in his. Maester. I heard the worst and came right over. Hearing Jon's voice brought a toothless smile to Aemon's lips. Bless you, dear Jon. He chuckled, which thanks to Sam's draft didn't set off another coughing spell. It still brings irony that at my old age I hold more memories of you than you do of me. It was true and painful to think of, but with Dany in his life, Jon was content. I do remember some, Master Aknam, and each of those moments brings me great warmth. There was little warmth in Castle Black, Jon. Most of it came not from fires, but from dear friends. You were one of them. He reached over with another hand and patted Jon's. My time is soon nigh. Do not say that. You have much to live for. I am over a century old, my boy. That is plenty for any one man. Again he smiled, drifting off into the distance with unseeing eyes. My family. I found it again. I witnessed it powerful, felt the dragon's heat beneath my palm. Oh, am I content? As I can tell you are, gently. He squeezed Jon's hand. You were never content, my boy. Not even before all of this when I knew you. When you were of the Night's Watch. Jon's breath hitched, as it did whenever his past came up. Memories that were still hazy or non-existent. When he finally would manage to return to Winterfell, he was sure such feelings would force the worst agony upon him. You yearned to join the Black, then you didn't. So much was propelling you, the crossroads of duty and destiny, that the call of freedom with the wildlings tempted you, and for this I assign no blame. Don't worry yourself with this, Maester. But Ivan tightened his grip. No, I must say this. His voice rasped. You were never meant to be one of the Night's Watch, to be there. Yes, to see the truth of what is beyond the wall. But your destiny was always to come here as Jon Stark, to meet Daenerys, to matter, groaning with aches and pains. Aegon forced himself to sit up slightly. You've become the man you needed to be, Jon. Now, you need to be bold, be decisive, Act not with what rigidity that so condemned your ancestors, but, with your ultimate goal in mind, fight the dead. Restore what will pull the realm out of the muck and mire we plunged it into. Heady stuff, but Jon forced himself to nod. I promise, Master Aemon. Good. Good, my boy. Master, may I ask you something? Of course, my boy, but perhaps quickly while I have the strength, Aemon said, chuckling quietly. Right, Jon said. He retrieved the raven scroll from his shirt. I received some distressing news from Winterfell. My sister, Sansa, Hermor. Podrick Payne passed on. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, my sister Arya wrote to me. Apparently Sansa is inconsolable, but his death was under mysterious circumstances, Jon said. He acted very unlike himself, threatening to murder my sister, speaking strange things in a strange way. This was strange. Jon nodded only after remembering that Aemon couldn't see him. I've fought with him before. He couldn't harm a soul, not even in battle. I see. What it is you want to ask me about this child? Well, Brienne, my sister's sworn sword, reported that Podrick's eyes washed over completely white before he died, Jon said, watching Aemon's face carefully. He noticed his old features tighten. No one's heard of no such thing in my life. I figured in your old life, perhaps you might know something. Yes, I know of it. Jane stiffened. You do? It sounds like your sister's husband may have been attacked by a warg, Aemon said. A warg? I think I once met a warg. A wildling. He controlled a hawk. He used it to scout ahead, Jon said, then brushed his fingers over scars surrounding his eyes. He used the bird to scratch my face. Yes, Aemon exhaled. He must have been a warg, but I've never heard of someone being controlled in that way before. Wargs can control animals, not people. Someone controlled Podrick. When a warg controls an animal, their own eyes wash over white. Also, the animal's eyes do as well, Aemon said. However, Podrick's eyes should have been white the whole time he was under the control of a warg. Maester Aemon, I'm confused. I don't know why a warg would target Podrick. To hurt Sansa. I don't know, child. But this must be a very powerful person. A very powerful warg. More than any others I've heard about, Aemon said. He or she is very dangerous. Controlling people in that way makes them even more powerful than a king. I see. They can make anyone do what they want, Jon said. Yes, Jon. Your family may be in grave danger. Jon stood suddenly. I'm sorry, Master. I must write back to them with this news. Wait, child. There's something else. Jon frowned, crouching back down. Aemon breathed. There can only be one warg with that kind of power. No ordinary warg should be able to do that. You know the person. He shook his head. No, child. But there's an old legend of a man with that sort of power. You may find more information at Castle Black, an old Lord Commander's diary, in the library. He dealt with this warg, Marin Hoare, brother of Black Harren. Sighing, Jon nodded. Thank you, Master. I might have to send word to Castle Black for this diary, but I also must write back to Arya urgently. The old warg, Aemon's voice began to waver. Yes, Master. He was called the Raven, gently reaching up, his old, calloused palm meeting Jon's cheek. Aemon seemed to look at him as if his sight had returned. Egg, you look just like him. I see. Each following world brought him closer to sleep until he finally drifted off, sighing as he fell back against his pillow, letting out easy breaths of a man entering a fitless slumber. Rising, patting Aemon's hand, Jon turned to Sam with furrowed brows. Egg? Yaxon the Unlikely, his brother. Sam shrugged. Aemon talks of him sometimes. It's not a pleasant memory given what happened to him at Summerhall. Makes sense, I suppose. Jon looked back at the sleeping Aemon. Why would he say I look like him? A smirk crossed Sam's face, and he laughed awkwardly. We always did say you were quite pretty, and the Targaryen men were said to be that way. I mean, Daenerys likes you, in spite of your brooding. Jon narrowed his eyes. Shut it, Sam. There was a short silence before Sam broke it. He wanted to see Daenerys. I think you should bring her. A nod. I should. She needs to see him once more. Clasping his hands behind his back, he hurried out of the bedchamber, seeking to dress properly before going after Dany at the beach. Rapping on the door, only the persistent knocks pulled Jon's gaze from the frail Maester, Aemon. Sam, what is it? It was far more curt than he wished. but such was his mood. It was Sam, and the acolyte entered with as much apology on his face as could be allowed. "Forgive me, John, but I was informed by a rather surly-looking Dothraki bloodrider that you were being summoned to the small council chamber. By the, Queen." A slight flash of ire crossed his face, but it was momentary. Or John just decided to ignore it with his own wince. Fucking small council. A curse that Aemon did not fail to notice. What is the matter, John?" John sighed. "They think I am a threat to her grace, to Daenerys. That's strange, I suppose, though among those high in the courts of royalty it is commonplace to see plots under every nook and cranny." He coughed slightly, hacking up a bit before resuming even breathing. "There usually are, as one plot against my dear brother led me to choose Castle Black to protect him. As for you, John, I know that you love my dear niece." "I do, I promise." "As I said, I believe you." A bony hand patted his. "But few know you as I do, or as my niece does." Nodding, John gestured for Sam to wait a moment. "Lady Missandei is the one person to believe Daenerys and I." He didn't acknowledge Theon. He did try to save him from Daenerys after all, which to John meant he'd be extra loyal. He did try to save him from Daenerys after all. Ser Garland cares not, while Ser Barristan and especially Lord Varys are skeptical. From how you're speaking, Lord Tyrion, is another case entirely. If he could have me sent back to Stannis or made a hostage again, he would. Be careful, I suspect that he is more like his famous father than he'd wish to admit. Ruthless, yet not as stupid or blinded by lust as that Selcerad. He pursed his lips. Be careful, John. A Lannister of Lord Tywin's generation is not one to take lightly. He'll do anything to maintain his position as advisor to the Queen. Or perhaps there is a fair bit of lust involved. John's fist clenched. He should tread more carefully around me. Aemon snorted, grinning toothlessly. It won't be as obvious when he makes his move. You should be cautious. He squeezed John's hand again. Don't let Daenerys go. John, she's never been happier, and nor have you. Promise me that. Smiling, John squeezed his bony fingers in return. I will do my best, Master Aemon. Hopefully we aren't ripped from each other, but not if I can help it. I must say nothing should surprise me anymore given what I have seen, spoke Tyrion, clicking his tongue. But this has. I didn't expect to see you alive and breathing again. Jorah Mormont! Jorah shrugged his shoulders, never an expressive man even before his death. And yet, I am here, another miracle in the world graced with such by our queen. Daenerys, noticed by all, seemed quite happy. Jorah had returned to her, and all knew how close they were in spite of what had happened. Missandei, and to a lesser extent Tyrion, knew such a mood was because of both Jorah's return and her relationship with Jon Stark. Clearing his throat, Barristan tapped on the painted table. This is merely a formality, but the charges of treason against Ser Jorah. He has been pardoned, Dany spoke definitively. He has more than atoned for said crime. Jorah nodded gratefully. So, Ser Jorah, how exactly did you escape death by grayscale again? Tyrion asked. The Lord of Light rescued me. With the help of Lady Kinvara and Lady Melisandre, of course, they revived me and nursed me back to health. Nora replied, motioning to the priestesses standing behind him. You are a follower of the Lord of Light now? Barristan asked. Jorah closed his eyes and sighed. Sometimes it feels surreal. But yes, he healed me. I owe him my life, naturally. Yet I am not a zealot. Kinvara nodded. Ser Jorah understands, as do I, that the Lord of Light stands firmly with Queen Daenerys and her quest, that his role shall be that of the bridge between her grace and his followers. Are you sure of that, Priestess Kinvara? Tyrion rubbed his beard. Lady Melisandre. There believed that Stannis Baratheon was the Lord of Light's chosen. In prophecy, there is room for misinterpretations. Melisandre replied, interrupting Tyrion. He didn't react. And forgive me for I do not claim to be a religious scholar, but wasn't Jon Stark brought back by the very same god? Would that make him the favorite of R'hllor according to your beliefs? Daenerys narrowed his eyes, understanding where Tyrion was going, but it wasn't her place to respond. It was Kinvara's as High Priestess. She only smiled softly, speaking in that innocent, girlish voice of hers. The fact that he is here and not with the Stay King gives credence to the Lord's plan for both of them. But he was saved, as was Ser Jorah. Does he not owe his life to your god as well? Tyrion smirked. Such is the choice I made, Jorah said with a small shrug. However, if that is the case, then this Jon Stark does owe his life to Rosier as well, and should act accordingly. I don't think Jon Stark is quite living in existence. Rosier would be proud of Ser Jorah, Tyrion said, enjoying this. Oh? Lord Tyrion, enough, Daenerys called out. We are not here to discuss Jon Stark. Pardon me, your grace. But I thought your most trusted sword should be brought up to speed on the current affairs of this castle. Your relationship with Jon Stark. I said enough. Daenerys raised her tone. That did silence Tyrion. Lord Tyrion, Lady Melisandre began. Jon Stark is a man of great interest to Rosier. Such is why he granted him new life when it was taken too soon. He has great plans for him. I see. If what you say of the Lord of Light is true, then such would explain the pull of their relationship. He glanced at Daenerys, even against our objections. Daenerys glared, but Jorah furrowed his brows in confusion. I've missed much since my departure, but all I have heard of Jon Stark was that he fought on the side of Stannis and was defeated. Kinvara didn't keep him fully in the dark, nor did the Citadel. While Tyrion remained silent, Varys cleared his throat. He is officially the representative of Stannis Baratheon for peace negotiations. Other than that, he looked at Dany. It is not my place to speak. He could only assume the worst, but Jorah would not judge without knowing, nor think badly of his queen. I might like to meet this Jon Stark, Jorah said. Oh? Then why don't we send for him? Tyrion said. Finding no way out of this, Daenerys signed and summoned her blood riders. Kutiklar, see to it that Jon Stark comes here. Gently. Rokuhul nodded and was soon out the door. While they waited, Jorah leaned into Dany. My queen, what is the importance of Lord Jon Stark? Daenerys sighed. He is, as Varys said, someone I trust. Ned Stark's bastard? Yes. Stannis' former commander? Yes, but not anymore. He is in pursuit of peace. One can be that and still be against you. She said nothing. Is there a reason for you to trust him? Again, she said nothing, staring ahead at nothing in particular until the door opened and revealed the man they were waiting for. Jorah watched Jon enter the room. Immediately, he noticed his physical body, the strength he possessed. He was surprised to see Jon's eyes dart in his direction, but not at him, but to Dany, standing next to him. Then he peered over at Dany, scanning her face. A slight smirk appeared. Perhaps the relationship Tyrion mentioned did exist. That idea was further compounded by the sheer amount of time they looked at each other and nothing else. Whether dangerous or advantageous, Yavr couldn't say. Just that, whatever the relationship was, held critical importance. Finally, Jorah decided to approach Jon. Mere seconds after Jorah's first step in his direction, Jon's eyes widened slightly, then sized Jorah up. Everyone watched them closely. To be cordial, Jon met Jorah halfway, extending his hand. Accepting his handshake with a firm grasp, Jorah met his eyes. I'm Jorah Mormont, he said. You must be Jon Stark. That's me. His brow rose. You're Jorah Mormont's son. I am. Your father was a great man. I respected him greatly. All of what you said is true, and thank you. He let go of Jon's hand. We were just speaking about you, Jon Stark. Is that so? Jon said. Oh, yes, Jorah said, releasing Jon's hand and stepping back. It seems you are the cause of some tension in this castle. Some small council members are not so fond of you. Then he gestured to Dany. But you remain here because you have seemingly captured the affections of our queen. Janesy's eyes widened. Jon felt completely taken off guard, yet it lasted but a moment. You do not waste time, Ser Jorah. Your father was of similar mind. He sucked in a breath. I must raise an objection, for the capturing the affections is quite reciprocal. Jorah pursed his lips. So, there are feelings between the two of you. At this point, it was obvious to Jorah. While Jon tried to be stoic, his attitude towards Dany reminded Jorah of himself with Lyness, and the hidden glances Dany gave Jon were ones he had always wished would be directed at him. Thus, he didn't wait for either to answer. And yet you side with Stannis. I am on the side of peace, and for my home, your home as well, and for the cause your father died for. Ah yes, the ice monsters, Tyrion rolled his eyes. Stipulating that they actually exist. The victory of her grace enables the greatest chance to defeat them. Unlike those of her council, Jorah had grown up with the stories. I should hope you aren't lying to her grace. Jon narrowed his eyes. Do you think I would lie to her? He gestured to the others. They are skeptical, and while I could see how the sworn sword to her grace would agree with them, I cannot see how the northerner in you would think I lie about the threat beyond the wall. There was a silence, broken by Jorah. I don't know what I think of you, Jon Stark. In his life as a sellsword, he had learned several rules in regards to analyzing an adversary or ally, that the true analysis laid in the person's end goal. While I trust Daenerys' instincts, I can't rule out the possibility of you being here for different reasons than you say. For one, Stannis Baratheon is a ruthless leader who will do whatever is needed to get what he wants, seeing as he used dark magic to murder his own brother. That was only a rumor, Jon said. Melisandre frowned. It was not Jon Stark. It was I that assisted him. Something I deeply regret. Jorah continued, didn't Stannis also destroy large parts of King's Landing, costing the lives of thousands of citizens? Remember, this is a crime that townsfolk might accuse your grace of committing. But no, it was the Stag King. The wildfire was placed by Cersei Lannister. Opening his mouth to argue, even Jorah couldn't deny that if he wanted to. All right, that's fair. He'll share the credit with her, then. He paused, taking a step closer to Jon. So the notion that he'd send you to seduce our queen. It isn't out of the realm of possibility as such. I cannot rule it out. Jon sighed. So, you too, as well, Sir Jorah. I just need to do some more unearthing, Jorah said. Consider yourself under watch, Jon Stark. You could be a threat, or perhaps you are telling the truth. Either way, I must know, for Daenerys' safety. He looked back at Dagny and then back to Jon. Bear in mind, Lord Stark, both myself and the Lord of Light believe in the destiny of her grace. I will not hesitate to strike you down if you end up posing a threat to her. Enough, Sir Jorah, Daenerys said. It is all right, your grace, Jon replied, glancing at Tyrion and Varys before going back to Jorah. I appreciate a man that states their intentions directly, without room for being misconstrued. Jorah leaned closer and almost muttered, I know you've captured the affections of her. You hold a place I've often desired. Someone tried this already. Jon cut in. Oh, I know. Dario Naharis. Don't worry, I'm not him. He's gone now, as you might have noticed. He met his end by the tip of my blade. The fate of many who rise up against me. Jorah chuckled. There's that fire out of you I've heard so much about. I will you no ill will, Sir Diabe. I am being honest. I want nothing more for Daenerys than her success. See her on the Iron Throne. But it doesn't have to be a bloodbath. No one else has to die. Jon said. That's why I'm here. How noble of you. How dull of you. I thought you were smarter than that. There will always be a bloodbath when someone has something others desire. It has been that way since the dawn of time, Jorah said. It will continue to be that way. It doesn't have to be. We can change things. Daenerys can change things. Jorah huffed, backing up so everyone can hear him better. Your Stag King doesn't want change. He won't allow this to end with Daenerys still alive. You're stupid for believing he might. She is always a threat to him. If there's one thing Stannis is good at, it's eliminating threats. There is no bigger threat to him than Daenerys. What has Stannis done, even after victories? Tyrion spoke up. He doesn't take prisoners. He burned Olenna, he burned Cersei. Why? Because letting them live was too much of a threat. He couldn't even bear imprisoning them for life instead. His paranoia wouldn't let him. In some ways we must be the same, eliminating a threat, Jorah said. Even if Daenerys loves you, Damding froze. Jon as well. Even if you love each other, if you have to go, Jon Stark, you'll bloody damn well go. Jon sighed, wondering if there was any point to this at all. But he rapped on the door, nevertheless. There was only a momentary silence. Tyrion called from the inside. Come in. When he saw Jon come through the door, Tyrion rolled his eyes. He sat at a small table, a goblet of wine in his fingers. What are you doing here? I'm not sure, to be honest, Jon said, pointing a thumb over his shoulder. I stood out there for a few minutes, deciding if I should even try. He raised a brow. Try what? Figure out what it is exactly you have against me, Jon said, closing the door behind him. Tyrion snorted. I think I've accurately described what it is exactly I have against you. He sipped at his wine, suddenly wishing he had gone for a really sour vintage that could get him drunk quicker than the expensive sweet wine he had poured for himself. No one ever accused you of being an idiot, Snow. Naive, yes, but not an idiot. His eyes narrowed. Stark, I am Jon Stark. Not by birth, Snow. Just as I will never escape being a dwarf. Dwarves and bastards, as I once told you. We are alike in that regard, always trying to get ahead, no matter what we had to do or who we had to use to get there. Pulling up a chair, Jon simply sat in it, legs splayed apart and folding his hands together. And I know you claim that it is the queen that I used to get ahead, as I assume you used your father's name. It was Stannis that you used previously, Snow, and I suppose you are using him still. Tyrion looked closely at Jon, scrutinizing him. I am no longer the advisor to my house, for a part of me and my brother my house no longer exists as a functioning entity. But there is still Daenerys Targaryen I serve, and you are a threat to her. Your allegations towards me have no evidence. The evidence exists simply by you being here. Stannis' top commander, his right hand, and the general that essentially won him the Iron Throne from when he was but a common claimant without 2,000 bannermen to his name, Tyrion chuckled. Any other lord would have simply bent the knee to our queen and then plotted against her. Sounds like a lot of people that ended up burned alive. A snort. As I said, you were never stupid, though you hold a sense of cunning that your father never did. You say that as if insulting my father. He caused his own death, I'm afraid. When he refused to play by the rules of a game he willingly chose to enter, you win or you die. The honorable people do not win. Again, he chuckled. I expected you to be like him, like Ned Stark, which is why I didn't see you as a threat when you were a hostage. How you refused to bend the knee for so long. It reinforced that, downing his goblet, Tyrion poured some more. Would you like some? Jon shook his head. I want my mind fully in place for this. Sighing, Tyrion leaned back in his seat. Eutho. Now it is as if I am dealing with a different person. Perhaps my father with some moral scruples. Well, he had some, but not many. You have more, but not enough to convince whatever used to be Jon Snow. Not to seduce the queen and pretend to be on her side, even when officially you are not. He peered at Jon. What is your angle, Snow? A double agent, feeding information back to Stannis. The Lord of Winterfell almost laughed. What? How can you truly believe that? Let me see what your Raven scrolls say. That should clear up a lot of my confusion. You know I can't let you do that. Then I think your intentions are malicious. Think whatever you want, Lannister. I thought Starks were more honorable than to lie and deceive. He chuckled, dryly. What would your father think of you now? Jon knew that the person he was before he died would be more furious at the slight of the Stark name. Still, he was upset. Perhaps just not as much as he would be if remembered more of his father. One of the areas of his memory that never truly all returned. Lord Tyrion, I had thought we had a good relationship, but it certainly has taken a turn for the worse in recent weeks. I can't say I know why. I understand your perspective. At least. But the last thing I want is to damage Daenerys in any way, he said. Then he leaned forward in his seat. You seem to think I've come to sow discourse and destroy what Daenerys has built. The next bit, he whispered. Even if I told you I wanted the opposite, would you believe me? Tyrion glared up at him and shook his head. No, I wouldn't. I'd have a hard time believing anything you say. Well, if you can't see yourself believing me, Jon shrugged, then perhaps your best course would be to get out of the way. You think my knees will buckle under towards you, boy? Tyrion may have been a dwarf, but he carried himself as if he were his more infamous father, just as big an ego. I'll have you tossed out of this castle on your arse, if it's the last thing I do. Perhaps even out of a window if continue pressing me, Tyrion huffed. Jon leaned back, unperturbed. The last person threatened at an end that you would wish for yourself, Tyrion. Didn't you see? The scowl. Nah, Harris was a fool, but my view of him has changed considerably since all of this. In an instant, he saw Jon's expression darken, but he wasn't afraid. He had faced far worse demons than Jon Snow. Your death was nonsensical, as you were a hostage, and it could have unraveled her Grace's reputation, but only he understood the long-term danger you possessed. Long-term danger, you say? The long-term danger her Grace's feelings for you possess, rather. He was nothing if not precise in his language. As a hostage or a vassal, Lord, you're an asset, but somehow you've seduced our queen. You really believe that, don't you? That I'm capable of that? Frankly, to Jon, it seemed something more along the line of what Dario would have done. Tyrion shrugged. Your father was not capable, but by all rumors, your mother was of the South. Perhaps a Hazardane like everyone speculated. He smirked as Jon's expression darkened even further. Perhaps such is why you claw high, to seek all above your station, as the bastard of a northern lord. It must be horrid to have never known your mother as I have. Yet even I know not the agony of an unknown mother like you. He sipped his wine. Does that drive you, Snow? Is that why you seek the warm cunt of our queen, just before you stab her in the back? Shaking his head, the Lord of Winterfell found such vacillating between grievously insulting of Dany and mildly amusing at the level of madness. Tyrion's mind must have contained. A snort passed out of his lips. Maybe one day, when all this is past, I'll forgive you for slighting me in this way. For slighting Daenerys this way. I'll be waiting for your apology, Jon said. I do understand why you mistrust me. I just thought you'd be able to understand why you're wrong. Jon began to walk towards the door, but Tyrion called after him. Do you love her? Slowly, Jon turned back to him. Well, I don't think either answer to that question would satisfy you. If I told you yes, you'd probably be filled with jealous rage. If I told you no, your belly would be filled with even more desire to convince everyone I'm a spy. So, I'll leave it up for your imagination to decide. Lord Tyrion. Somehow, an urge to jape came to his mind. I know your reputation as someone quite prurient and depraved, so whatever lurid picture your mind comes up with will likely be close to accurate. The tiny grin on his face said all he failed to say out loud. Tyrion clenched his jaw looking away as Jon left the chamber. His senses immediately forced him to drink as much wine as possible until he passed out for the night. Lady Arya, she liked Wolkan. Aera found him not as warm as Luwin, who was close to family among House Stark, but he was professional and took his duties as a maester seriously, a loyal maester to the Starks, which surprised her slightly, given that he had been first sent to be House Bolton's maester. As such, she didn't correct him as she would most others. Yes, for me, Wolkan. He nodded. A raven has arrived from Dragonstone, bearing the seal of your brother. Arya's eyes widened. It bore only your name below the seal, as well as some other words that I cannot decipher. So I figured that Lord Stark wished that only you could see it. Taking the proffered letter, Arya found the seal. Her name, and one other line in a sloppy script. One only she could truly decipher. Remember what we said regarding secrets? Don't tell Sancerre, Arya murmured so that only she could hear it. Snorting, she shook her head at the fond memory. Only to gasp and smile. Was Jon remembering? Likely just a fleeting memory. But it was a start. Thank you, Master. As Wolkan nodded to her, she left, breaking the seal as she thought on the message. Was it only not to tell Sancerre or as a means of keeping it? Only between them, she decided to keep to caution and treat it as the latter. Ranzira, it filled me with relief to hear from you, though I cannot write as long a message as I would wish. There are those here that keep a close watch on me. Her eyes narrowed, suspecting perhaps betrayal of the Dragon Queen. No, if it was the Dragon Queen, he wouldn't have sent the letter. Her council likely viewed him as a threat if what he alluded to about her and their feelings for each other were accurate. Jon was dipping his toe in the same game as their father did, and Arya prayed that he wouldn't share the same fate. Walking out into the blistering cold of the outside, Arya continued to read. Please give Sansa my love and condolences about Podrick. However, I must tell you something. Maester Aemon Targaryen, former Maester of Castle Black, informed me of a story, a legend rather, that matches what you told me of Podrick's death. According to him, he was likely the victim of a warg. She blinked. A ward? Arya murmured. I have seen these people and how they manipulate and share minds with animals. There have even been a history of them in our house, but only one warg is known to control the minds of men. It is called a raven. Euroncie, burn this letter after you read it, but I need you to do something for me. Only you can. I trust to perform. Reading the request, Raya seemed confused. Castle Black, why was Jon? Caw. Tensing suddenly, Arya looked up to see a raven settled atop one of the battlements, staring down at her with those curious eyes. Caw, caw, caw. More than one began to flutter in. feathers fluffed up as they beat their wings in a powerful flurry, at least a half dozen, landing on the tile roof, on barrels, even on the snowy ground. The raven, Arya knew not to fear, not since learning the tricks of her trade, on how to be no one. She'd felt anger, sadness, even apprehension and panic, but never fear. Now she felt some like fear, be it an innate reverence and respect for the metaphysical that old Nan had instilled in all the brood of Eddard Stark as she had for the brood of Rickard Stark before them. Something seemed out of place. Something in Jon's fantastical words felt real, and it shook her. She rushed inside as quickly as she could without being conspicuous. Memorized fully, the letter found itself tossed into the hearth, carefully written words, disappearing within the flickering flames. "I can't do this." "You must." Biting her lip, Daenerys nodded. She hated feeling weak, that same girl that had been abused and controlled by Viserys and then abused and used as a trophy by Drogo. Stuck in the Red Waste outside court, dependent on the schemes of some minor merchant to even survive. Here she was, a queen of a mighty realm with a massive army and 3 great dragons, just as terrified. And she understood why. He's my great-uncle, my family, the last of my blood still alive. To think that he was dying, that he was close to dying. Arms wrapped around her and drew her into an embrace. Daenerys immediately reciprocated, latching onto Jon Stark and inhaling his scent, savoring it. I could kill Tyrion. His insistence had deprived her of Jon's comfort when she most needed it, and greedily took what she could get at the moment. At the very least, she had Jara, but Jon was who she needed now. "I feel the same way," he murmured into her hair. "He was family to me as well, and it killed me to speak with him, knowing that his death was near. But I did so." Jon pulled back, smiling sadly down at her. "You'll never forgive yourself if you don't speak with him before he passes, Dandy." She nodded. "I know." Just as greedily, she leaned up and kissed him on the lips, short, but filled with promise. "Stay close, please." He smiled again. "I'll be just outside, as will Sam in case Aemon needs anything." Jon's hands dropped to her waist, holding her lovingly. "Just call if you need me." "I will. I love you," Dainty murmured. "I love you too." Unlike most of her counsel, she believed his every word. Shuddering once his touch departed, she hesitantly moved her hand to the latch and opened it, sparing one last glance at her love before slipping inside. The chamber was quite warm, 2 braziers close to the bed, while the fire roared in the hearth. Most would feel discomfort, but Daenerys didn't mind, nor did she think Aemon did either, given both their blood. She removed her cloak and draped it over an unused chair, leaving her only in her black dress and boots. Daenerys had debated whether to keep her braids, but she and Missy both thought that if Aemon wanted to feel her hair one last time, she should be as authentic as possible, hence how they tumbled freely down her shoulders. She looked not the Dragon Queen, but Daenerys, older and wiser, but no less a lonely young woman. Gasping at how frail Aemon looked, even gaunter than she had remembered, Daenerys trembled as she took a seat in the chair alongside the bed, holding her hands in her lap as she waited for him to wake, trying not to cry at how her uncle appeared. Finally, after a length of time, Daenerys couldn't tell if it was a minute or an hour. Wajin began to stir, lips smacking together. He saw nothing but seemed to immediately notice she was there. "Daenerys!" Her heart clenched. "Uncle Aemon." She reached forward, taking his hand. It was cold and thin. "How are you feeling?" He shifted in the bed. "Not well. Yet that has been true for the last 3 decades. At least I feel warm again, after so long." Aemon chuckled, while Daenerys smiled weakly. "What brings you here, child? I'm sure a queen has much higher duties than to visit an old man." She shook her head. "You're my only blood, Uncle Aemon. There is no place I'd rather be than..." Daenerys trailed off, unable to speak further. Aemon caught on. Yeah, on my deathbed, you mean." Taking in a shuddering breath, he placed his other hand over hers. "Daenerys, I've made my peace with the stranger decades ago. You need not be scared for me. It's not that..." He smiled. "You wish not to be alone." Daenerys bit her lip. A Targaryen alone in the world is a terrible thing, as were we for the longest time. But you're not alone anymore, Daenerys. "I will be soon," she murmured, looking away. "No," his voice was firm. "You are not alone." "Uncle, my dragons, they are my children, but they are not a human companion of our blood." You have John. She looked back at him, brow raised. He is a wolf, but he is united to you in spirit. I cannot see, but I can see it plainly. Daenerys peered at him. What do you mean, uncle? Opening his mouth to respond. Instead, his body seized as he coughed, though unlike before it came out as more of a wheeze, as if Aemond had no energy even to clear his lungs of whatever irritated them. Daenerys quickly leaned forward. Uncle, she spoke softly, cupping his cheek. Would you some water or wine? He seemed to be composing himself, even if occasionally he trembled from suppressed coughs. Aye, water would be lovely. A slow, weak grin spread on his face. Lost the taste of wine, drinking the mule's piss ale at Castle Black. Even in this somber time, he made Daenerys smile as she poured water from a jug from one of the natural springs at the base of the Dragonmont. I drank fermented mare's milk while with the Dothraki. It is as ghastly as it sounds. No doubt, no doubt. Axelune sipped his water and seemed relieved. Thank you, my dear. It was now he that reached out to cup her cheek, feeling the soft skin and silky hair, as Dainty closed her eyes. You are beautiful, my dear. The perfect queen of our house. One that undoubtedly has many suitors for your hand. But pick the perfect one to love. She had no doubts about that. Some think it is a mistake. Hoosier frowned but didn't address it directly. Once, when he first came to Castle Black, I counseled Jon Stark that love was the death of duty. He paused, waiting. It is true, for what is honor compared to a woman's love? What is duty against the feel of a newborn son in your arms? Her mood grew more somber. A joy I shall never feel. Dainty cupped her abdomen, thinking of the babe she had lost and the many she wished to bear with. Jon her dreams taunted her with, Not after! The witch that cursed you. A nod. Yes. Pish. He waved it off. Do not be disturbed by the incantations of illiterate shepherds. Save the worries for enemies that actually pose a threat to you. But uncle, I have not once fallen with a child from that sellsword, the one that killed Jon and betrayed you. Her silence betrayed the truth. Did he have any bastards? Well, not to my knowledge. Perhaps then he was the problem. Men can be infertile too. It was well and good that he didn't see the blush on her cheeks, as if she just realized her oversight. She wondered about the many times she and Jon had laid together as well. Nothing came of that either. She appreciated Aemon's sentiments, but she wasn't getting her hopes up anytime soon for birthing a child. But, he wheezed again. I don't have much time left to prate about the obvious, more than we have. You need this advice, Daenerys. My beloved niece, the blood of my blood. She gripped his hand again. I am here, uncle. You have my attention as long as you wish. He met her eyes, an old habit, no doubt, given they no longer saw anything. I told him, Egg gods, you are so alike his little girl, my little niece. Trailing off, Aemon shook his head before continuing. Daenerys, I told your great-grandfather that he must kill the boy and let the man be born. I told Jon Stark this, and that love is the death of duty, but that is not true for you. What do you mean? We Targaryens, our duty is fire and blood. We are fire and blood in our very bones, same as the dragons we once rode and now ride again. He wheezed, but continued. This makes us great, but too much, not madness, but a lust for fire, lust for power, like Maca, or those of the dance. It must be tempered. We must have that which restrains us. Happiness, comfort, love. Aemon cupped her cheek. You love Jon. It wasn't a question, but Dany nodded. I do. Axelmene smiled. Then keep it. He started to cough again. It will save you. Keep it. Uncle? She asked, gripping his hand. Uncle. Uncle? Hearing the rasping breaths, Daenerys' heart began to thump in her chest as fear filled her face. Uncle! Help! She called out, standing to rush for the door. Uncle Aemon! The door threw open to reveal Jon, his eyes focusing on the suffering maester. Sam, he yelled, taking Dainty in his arms. Sam, get over here. The hurrying acolyte raced over as fast as his legs could carry him, rushing over to Aemon's side and hunched over him. Listening to his breathing, he needs milk of the poppy to calm his lungs. Hefting the emaciated Aemon to a more sitting position, one of the maids began to pour a spoonful to dribble into his lips. But if he sleeps, I fear he won't wake again. Sam gave both Daenerys and Jon a grim expression. How long? Jon asked, knowing he'd regret the answer. He was right. I fear he won't see the sunrise. Wincing, Jon looked to Dany, his eyes giving as much support as they could. The Dragon Queen seemed close to collapse, but her voice was firm when she spoke. Ease his suffering. Daenerys stared at Aemon with increasing pain in her eyes. He is a prince of House Targaryen. He deserves a gentle death. Nodding, Sam gestured to the maid. Give it to him, pour the milk slowly into his mouth. Slowly, not all at once. The maid wasn't trained as a healer, but the orders were simple enough, and soon Aemon swallowed it all. Already his breaths were more even. His lungs no longer sounded as if they were ripping paper. Sighing, Sam eased him back into a resting position. There, he won't be feeling pain anymore. Wordlessly, Daenerys walked back to where she had been sitting and resumed her seat. Taking Aemon's hand in hers, gently stroking the back with her thumb, the expression on her face was hollow, even when Jon stood behind and pressed his hand on her shoulder. Daenerys! Daenerys! Her pet name on his lips finally coaxed the tears out. How concerned and loving it was. Jon, he heard her agony. You should get some rest. Dany shook her head. No, someone. I can watch him while you sleep. You go. He is my family, the last of my family, of my blood. I have to be here, for the both of us. Feeling him draw his hand away, Daenerys felt even more alone than she was facing the impending death of her great uncle, until she heard the scrape of wood upon the stone floor. Finally tearing her eyes away from Aemon's emaciated face, she met Jon's eyes. The Lord of Winterfell placed a chair next to hers and took his seat. He grabbed her free hand and enclosed it in his own. Aemon is family to me, if not by blood, then in spirit, as are you, my love. Her eyes watered. You are to me as well. Trembling, Daenerys leaned against him. Don't leave me. I don't want to be alone. Never. I'm here, always. Not another word being shared, they leaned their heads forward, pressing against each other, eyes gazing into the other, providing their love as much comfort as possible under the circumstances. Together for each other in a way neither had endured during their short, yet eventful lives. Aeg, Shira, Aeg. Tearing their eyes away from each other, both Daenerys and Jon stared at Maester Aemon. His eyes were lidded and heavy, movements sluggish, but he seemed to slowly thrash about as his unseeing gaze directed outward, calling for his brother and his niece, Aeg, Shira. I dreamed. I was old. Only Jon's presence beside her kept Daenerys from breaking down that moment. It turned out that Sam was not wrong in his prognosis. The night was a restless one as the news spread like dragon fire through Dragonstone. Missandei dropped what she was doing to tend to her queen, as did Ser Jorah, while Ser Barristan was not far off either with whatever support he could give. Theon Greyjoy came once and spoke to Jon, and the words of comfort from an old friend were appreciated. Varys and Tyrion hovered close, saying nothing even as Daenerys refused to leave Jon Stark's side. Varys was inclined to say nothing, finding it innocent enough. Tyrion found it dangerous, but wasn't foolish enough to object. Not with the Queen's only family on his deathbed. But that didn't mean he wasn't watching Jon carefully. He should spend his time in a play with minstrels for this acting performance. Overhead, the dragons flew, unleashing their mournful cries to match the mood of their mother. All of it wasn't enough. Daenerys felt heavy emotion, rising to the surface. But the room had grown fuller. She didn't want to cry in front of them, though the sight of Aemon passing away was becoming too great a burden to witness. She squeezed Aemon's hand and said, "You have given me more than you know, Uncle. Rest easy, knowing I will carry our house onward." She let out a shaky breath. "Thank you." Aemon could barely move at this point. However, Damian noticed his head slowly nod in acknowledgement. With that, Damian rose from her seat and walked out to the nearby terrace. Jon watched her go, the cold wind blowing her hair. He made to follow her, but he heard a faint voice call out to him. "Jon!" It was Master Aemon. He snapped his head around, sitting forward. "Yes? Master Aemon, I'm here." Aemon's mouth began to move, but the noise coming from his mouth was too quiet for Jon to hear. So, he leaned much closer to Aemon, his ear very close to his mouth. "Dragons, wolves, fire, ice. You're more special than you know." Jon frowned, raising his head up. He held Aemon's weak hand with two of his. He said, "Rest easy, master. You were the best of us." Then he stood. He backed up, watching Aemon, walking backward all the way until he drew close to Dany, out on the terrace, who immediately grabbed hold of him, her hands balling fist on the back of his tunic, burying her face in his center. The small council members watched the scene unfold before them. No one dared speak. Missandei covered her mouth, tears resting on her eyelids. Barristan's face was pressed in a hard countenance. His was emotionless. Tyrion kept his eyes on Jon, wondering endlessly what Aemon had just whispered to him. For when Prince Aemon Targaryen, Maester of Castle Black, finally breathed his last and drifted off into the endless sleep, so did Daenerys scream into Jon's chest. She wailed. So did she beat her breast and collapsed in Jon's arms. Not once did Jon let go of his love, eyes filled with tears as well.